Good morning. Welcome in Hurrdat Sports Radio, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. What's going on, DB?
What is up? Certainly not the temperature.
No, it's a little chilly in here. I don't know what's happening. It's it's pretty chilly outside.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a result of that. Doesn't seem like our heat.
Did you open the old cabinets? Did you go any old? You probably aren't.
I do the. I trickle the faucets.
You trickle it?
Yeah.
Trickle and like matricle?
Yeah, matriculate. I matriculate the faucets.
Yeah. It was the only good thing about this weather is my dogs are extremely efficient.
Oh yeah, in and out.
Yeah.
No messing around.
Oh yeah. Didn't have to turn on one light this morning, so I feel
pretty good.
Yeah, I have a dimmer in the bathroom because the whatever the light is, the sunlight or the little cutout opening in my bathroom.
Oh yeah.
It's a non-factor right now, obviously.
Not a lot of sun.
Yeah, so it was a pretty good, nice little quiet morning.
Efficient morning, getting in and out.
Nobody feels well in that house. There's not a ton of movement.
I think that's pretty common across a lot of households now.
It's weird.
Stuff's going
it's
around.
Like something just zapped the whole place.
I don't know what it is.
Not like that though.
Like Electro. Who's the dude? Who's Jamie Foxx in the Spider-Man movie?
That's Electro. Yeah.
Electra is Jennifer Garner.
Correct.
Okay.
People hated on that movie. I kind of liked it. I kind of liked Electra.
I didn't see Electra. I did see Daredevil, and I didn't think it was that bad.
I like Daredevil, but yeah. I'm a fan.
You're a Ben Affleck guy?
I was gonna say he's a friend of mine. No, I'm a fan of his.
You and Ben Affleck real tight?
No, but I did Sunday. What day was I super sick? So it was Saturday or Sunday. Early. I wasn't sleeping, so I was out. Was I downstairs in the front room? Anyway, I stumbled into a Ben Affleck movie called Deep Water.
Oh, okay.
Do not sit through that.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that.
I mean,
that thing wet.
It's pretty strange. He's a husband.
Okay.
That made a ton of money. He developed this deal in drones. But anyway, he's in like this little small quaint community. He's pretty loaded, and he and his wife are they've just got issues, and she has an eye for a lot of other people. And he comes across as being fairly cool with it. But spoiler alert, they all end up disappearing.
He's not cool with it.
So you're trying to figure out if he's cool with it.
Did you see this on your TikTok? Is that why you watched it?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw a scene from this.
That's weird.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I've never even heard of this movie. And I do like Ben Affleck.
Did you see the scene where he was like down by the lake trying to get the guy's body to sink?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I saw too.
Yeah, so I watched it. Yeah, that's spoiler alert. That's a scene in the real movie. I mean, it is just odd. So yeah, I did watch that. His I don't know the ladies who the actress is. I think she's fairly popular.
For his wife?
Yeah.
I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
Oh gosh, here we go. Just quickly. Deepwater cast.
Oh, it's Ana de Armas.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
She's she's pretty popular.
What else was she in?
She was in the most recent Bond movie. She was in.
Shane, how did you not know? You were just lecturing us about. Did he not blow you away with his?
Well, she was in Blade Runner.
His whole Bond thing.
Yeah,
a couple days ago. That was incredible.
Kind of went Rain Man on us there with the whole Bond stuff.
Like, hey man, I was trying to get to my car.
He's like, hey, this is one timeline. Then you got this other timeline. It sounded like he was describing like a Marvel thing that I didn't understand.
The new Blade Runner, Shane.
That is correct.
Yeah.
She's also in Knives Out. You ever see that one?
Yep, she's in that.
I have not seen.
That's a great movie.
I got to get out more.
You could do it. You can watch it in. It's inside. You can watch it on your little streaming device.
Your favorite Bond's in it.
Yeah, Daniel Craig's in that one too.
Oh, I'm a big DC guy.
He's got this like thick Southern accent in it. It's wild.
Wow, Daniel Craig with a Southern accent.
It's pretty good.
No typecasting that guy, huh?
No Bond in him.
Yeah, so
you thought you thought in that movie she was going to get the hose. I mean, not to spoil it or anything, but
excuse me, get the what?
Get the hose.
I don't know what that means, Shane.
She was going to get hosed in that movie.
In what sense?
You mean like?
Well,
like the shaft, like
the shaft, yeah.
the short end of the stick.
The
Shane.
short end of the stick. Yeah.
Like something bad was going to happen to her.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what movie is this?
Knives Out.
Oh, yeah. You thought, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I haven't seen it, so it's. I think
there's a lot going on.
I mean, she's very rootable for in that movie. So let's just put it there.
rootable.
Yep.
I think I think we're making up a lot of
like
words.
Rudy Rudiger. Rootable.
Again, one of the more overrated, terrible sports movies of all time. But
you don't like it because Joe Montana doesn't like it.
No, he wasn't a good dude.
That's what everybody says. That's like what all the real people say.
Yeah,
he's kind of just
I mean, it's a
jerkwad.
Pretty much a consensus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I did find myself. Maybe that's why I didn't like Notre Dame. No, I don't think I like Notre. I never liked the uniforms. I never liked anything about Notre Dame.
I like the helmets.
Do you? Just the clean gold.
The cold clean gold.
Play like you want to play like a champion?
I mean, sure, why not?
Oh, champion.
Sure, why not?
Like how they kind of recreated the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that.
Yeah.
The dome.
I like the. I don't know. I've always sort of not like rooted for them, but I like the look. It's a very clean look.
I get the city and the affiliation, but how does Travis Scott have a resurgence after Astroworld?
I don't know, man.
Was that weird?
Yeah, he was at something else not that long ago, and I was like, oh, I guess we're just cool with that now.
Oh, well, good on second chances.
So the DJ can't spin.
I think he won that deal, didn't he?
Won what deal?
The suit.
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe that's it.
I still don't feel great about. I'm not ready to jump back on the Travis Scott bandwagon.
No.
Not that I was ever on it in the first place, but I probably wouldn't choose.
Ravi here for Travis Scott.
I probably wouldn't choose now to be like, you know what, I'm okay with this.
Yeah. So you're watching that deal last night?
Yep.
What's the matter?
I'm a little disappointed.
Oh, yeah.
Bummed is too strong. I'm a little disappointed in how Notre Dame played.
Okay.
Like I thought they could do better.
Me too.
Like I thought they had better.
And so I convinced myself all morning that was a ridiculous take.
What?
From like 3:45 on, I'm like, man, this damn DB. Like, that's a terrible take. That Notre Dame could have played better. Because and then I convinced myself, this is right before I lifted the garage. Mm-hmm. I didn't lift it, though.
Yeah, hit the button.
I thought, all right, a couple things could be true at once. Because Ohio State finally, in a 4-week stretch.
Yeah, played like Ohio State.
Really played like Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to give, I get it, man. I mean, and good on him, man. He wallowed in it and said a bunch of slick things. But, I mean, you got to give Ryan Day his due.
Yeah.
Like,
it would have been.
He rallied those guys.
It would have been really easy
to cave
for that thing to collapse after Michigan.
Yep.
Really easy.
And they had to be a more tight-knit group than I gave them credit for.
Sure, yeah.
Because you don't recover from
absolutely not
Michigan to go on that kind of
and
run.
Maybe they weren't before that.
Yeah, it could be.
Like that could be true.
Could have been the catalyst. But I was very disappointed, even upset at sometimes as a guy that obviously watches Notre Dame a fair amount and especially secondary play. Did not know why they played like that.
I don't. That's the thing I think that's going to haunt them.
I don't know.
I don't know what they were doing.
It's not what they do. And not all man is created equal. I think they were timid. And they allowed a good guy. We saw this in the bowl game with Dana Holgorsen. When you don't change coverages on the back end, the passing game. What do I always say, Ravi?
It's pretty easy.
The passing game is not what gets you beat.
Mm-hmm.
It's the run fits.
Yeah.
I said this for years.
The run fits killed him last night.
Like once upon a time, and we weren't really beating them yet.
Mm-hmm.
It took a while. So this is probably like after 2013. But the only way we could ever run the ball on Millard North is like we kind of had to scheme it knowing that they played man-to-man.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, ooh, let's try to throw the ball over their head or this, that, and the other. But just when teams play a certain way all the time, if they're good enough, it's cool. But you saw it just be the end of Notre Dame trying to stop the run.
Mm-hmm. It was.
I get it. The Jeremiah Smith passing play, like no idea what was going on there. Oh Lord.
On the first touchdown.
No.
Oh, on the dagger.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's inexplicable.
No, no excuse. I mean, there's literally no excuse.
But like you saw where it was compromised in the run game. When you have your back end moving with motion, multiple guys on the snap of the ball in between the hashes, you're Judkins is going to get a 65-yard.
You're done.
Right?
I mean,
so it was just like it was those little things that.
And I think we forget that Chip Kelly kind of made his bones doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's what he was good at as an offensive coordinator, was getting people into difficult decisions in the run game.
He had a night.
He did.
He got conservative, and that's I'm not even really bothered by that.
No.
Right? Because at that point,
one of the only things that can get you is turnovers.
Yeah.
Right? Like once you're up 31-7 halfway through the third, about the only way you can lose.
I'm with you.
About the only way you can lose is turnovers.
Yeah.
And we saw that, right? Like if Notre Dame had done better with the fumble a few minutes earlier, and that's maybe part of the reason you go, and I know it was on a big play that worked and the guy just got stripped, but I think that's part of the reason you go, yeah, we got lucky there. We got lucky Notre Dame didn't get that touchdown earlier, and so let's not give them anything else.
Yeah.
Right? That's probably what
I didn't have, and I get it, man. You could, the anxiety, you could feel it, and you're like, oh, God, just, continue to be aggressive. But shoot, their running game was pretty good. I thought, obviously, Will Howard was exceptional.
Yeah.
And the little crafty things, and I have all these flashbacks, whether it's North Platte or Millard North or, Jake Plummer did it to us. Sometimes when you have to defend 4 downs and your quarterback is really crafty like that.
Like mentally it's a little taxing on you?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is, man. And it's, if you don't have success on first down, you immediately shift to, God, these guys are going to have 3 downs to make 6 yards.
And that's hard to stop.
It's just hard to stop.
We saw that even with Ohio State on the other side on the first possession for Notre Dame, right?
Yeah.
Like we saw them realize, we've got to go 4 possessions here. And it seemed like it sort of wore on them mentally. To their credit, they snapped out of that.
Well, so this, I wonder if this is what happened with Ohio State, because I tweeted out real time. I'm like, OSU has to feel like they were fitting in the run game pretty well.
Yeah. And Notre Dame was still getting.
And Riley Leonard would just like kind of slip or maneuver.
Still get 4 to 6 pretty much every time.
Or find this little narrow crease. And I know those guys were like, oh, man, I was in B gap, or I was in A gap, or I was in D gap, or whatever.
Where it's supposed to be.
And he was like hitting like a half gap, like half a gap.
Yeah.
And it's hard. So then you have to be super finite. Inside shoulder versus outside shoulder. Like you have to be perfect if you're not whipping those guys at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens when your quarterback can run the ball. And Notre Dame found that out too.
Yeah.
Right? If you play man to man against a mobile quarterback, it's tough.
So
I like the fact, and remember what I asked in the offseason? We talked about this with Chip Kelly. Would Chip Kelly be I said, as prolific as Ohio State is outside the numbers. I asked Keels in the offseason, I said, could you see Chip Kelly falling in love with QB run game and 2 of the best backs in the country?
Yeah.
I said, no. I think you got to get those guys the ball on the perimeter, and I get it. But when it came down to it, they ran the goddamn ball.
I would say, and also as good as they are on the outside and as good as they are on the perimeter, what ended up being the thing that worked for Ohio State best?
Yeah, the same thing. I had so many aha moments, and this is why I'm terrible to watch games with, unless you really like techie BS. But the under the center run game, it got Nebraska a couple times, didn't it?
Yep.
Right. I showed you those formations, and they would do this out of this formation when they get underneath center, and then they hit you with like duo. Like that stuff is hard.
Yeah.
And it is very, 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 very underappreciated.
They mentioned it on the broadcast last night on the jet sweep, how when you're under center
the timing?
you run the jet sweep, that it gets on you in a hurry.
Yeah, Wisconsin. Brett Bielema was the first,
really good at that.
The best to ever do it.
Yeah,
Bielema and how he could time. I mean, I think Abaderis might have had 226,000 yards on jet sweeps.
Yeah.
Even guys that were like random. Like, that's how Agumbawale even got started at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
He wasn't even in the backfield as a running. The guy would just get jet sweeps.
Well, and that's what – I mean, that was Melvin Gordon before we knew Melvin Gordon was Melvin Gordon, right?
Yep.
Was he just gashed people on jet sweeps.
Yeah. But the run game at the point underneath center is – I just don't think Notre Dame was, like, geared up for
Was
that.
ready for that?
No, because it was on him in a hurry.
Yeah.
And your safety's got to be down into the box so quick. There was a ton of pressure on Kaiser.
Mm-hmm.
And Watts, too. Like, they isolated those guys getting down into the box. So both those two young men will sleep well the next couple of days. They put a lot of pressure on those guys. There were just some little cat and mouse moments, man, where I'm like, God, that's going to be hard to appreciate, like, to the lay person. But I was loving it.
Well, yeah.
And it was all I had to do because it was 31-7.
Yeah, it was 31-7.
And, I went back to Nebraska women's basketball for a second, but
because, I mean, it was 28-7 pretty much right after half.
And at halftime, I'm like, oh, God, Travis, really? Like,
yeah.
Man, we can go back to the girls' game. And I didn't have coat on or Greesh. Just had to go low, no volume for the girls' game. And then I came back, and it was still, like, halftime was still going.
Yeah, it was really long.
Nebraska basketball was pushed it to 20.
Yeah, it was a really long.
So then I just went back and watched plays.
Yeah.
For about 6 minutes, which I'm like, ooh, that touchdown run that Judkins had, the little the little stiff arm.
Yeah, was that the second touchdown?
Yeah.
14-7 to make it 14-7.
Notre Dame will want that one back too.
Yeah.
There's a
bunch of those
where it's like
you had a chance.
You played the puller. You want to spill it. Why did you come in? You fit inside of that.
Yeah.
You should be off his hip. That way you take away Judkins' ability to turn the corner. And I don't know if Kaiser was kind of in a bind.
And he was having to, like, make a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he should have leveraged the ball, not the block, and help out the puller. So then you don't get your boy stiff arm because he's having to take on the block.
Yeah.
You got to fit outside of him. And
spill Judkins back towards the inside help.
Yeah, you want to turn him back inside. Because
spill is out.
outside.
Spills out.
Yeah,
but you want to push him back in.
You want to turn that thing back inside.
You're basically like icing a ball screen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And I mean, Judkins, his stiff arm, I don't know if he boxes.
He's like got punched, got pop to it.
He uses that bad boy like a jab.
Snap. They call it snap on the jab.
He uses it like a jab.
Yeah.
And I still think, I go back every 3 or 4 weeks. I wonder what Buckeye fans think. I still like Henderson better because they're two very, very different runners, in my opinion. And to use them in similar schemes would be kind of a nightmare.
It's sort of interesting, though, to watch.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Henderson, if Trayvon Henderson gets in like a gap scheme, he's really, really good. More than just like true zone.
Yeah.
Judkins is more of like a true zone guy.
And I think you asked me this question earlier in the season, and I think we're 4 or 5 games in, and I liked Judkins better at the time.
I like Henderson better.
And then, like 3 weeks later, I was like, maybe I do like Henderson better.
I think I kind of like Henderson better.
But there were times there were times where I just watched Judkins. I was like, God, that guy's so good.
Hey, how about in blitz pickup?
Yeah.
Like those guys?
Yes.
Ohio State's talented, man, but they do a lot. They do a lot of
grimy stuff.
Things well.
Yeah.
I felt like their receivers won on the perimeter too. In those condensed sets, running the ball, like their wide receivers did a good job.
That's part of the reason I think you have to give Hartline so much credit.
Yeah.
Because it's not just that he gets these ridiculous talented guys in the group or in that room and he makes the most out of them. It's that they actually are really good football players.
Yeah.
Right. They do a bunch of the stuff. You know, you go to like some of these other places that put out really prolific wide receivers. They're not bringing up how they win on the outside and run game, right? Like you go to LSU and it's like, hey, those guys are just.
You weren't saying that with Waddle and Devontae Smith.
No. I don't think Devontae Smith was winning a lot on the outside.
I don't know. It was, but I'm glad I'm not super crazy. I did feel like on the back end, I wanted Notre Dame to play,
especially defensively. Like
better.
They are who I thought they were offensively.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
But defensively, I go, I've seen better from them than this.
Hey, and how about as obvious as that fake punt was?
Mm-hmm.
How about Faison just catches that?
Yeah.
Right. That ball's there.
Yeah. Just catch it.
And it's just there are these like 4 or 5 things that happen during the course of a game, and it's like, well, their guy made the play, and like Nico Collins inexplicably dropping a ball. Or 2, or Michi not hanging on to a ball. Like you can say all you want about the Chiefs' conspiracy theories, their guys don't. Those guys, their guys weren't dropping those balls. They were making tight contested catches.
And that's the point I was making yesterday. Right? Is the reason it seems I don't even know because this is all anecdotal, right? Nobody's actually done the numbers on this, or not that I'm aware of. I'm sure somebody on the internet has, but. The reason those calls seem so dramatic is because the Chiefs always take advantage.
Yeah,
a lot of other teams.
You know who took the deep dive? He took the bait too, so I didn't feel so bad. I just saw it this morning.
Who?
Russillo. He went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
He just was sick of hearing about the whole Chiefs and went down and wasted a bunch of time doing penalties in the fourth quarter. And total yardage.
That dude will go down a rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, and he did.
Like he'll dive all the way.
He did, and I'm like, gosh, I'm glad I'm not. I'm certainly not alone.
No, you're not the only one.
But I was like,
I was surprised you were late to the party and didn't know about it.
Super late.
That's what surprised me.
Super late.
Like I just thought somewhere on TikTok you would have seen it.
Yeah, it's super late. And I was just thinking about that game last night where. For all the flash and dash and style and big playability that Ohio State has, I think going 3 for 4 for 4 on their first 4 drives touching the football. Because what did you text me earlier? What are they going to get? 6 drives?
6 possessions. Yeah.
This is about all they needed.
Yeah, I didn't expect them to go.
And that was like with 5 minutes to go in the first quarter. And I was like, well, 6 seems low. But I didn't know Ohio State was going to play like that either.
I didn't know Ohio State was going to play like that, and I thought Notre Dame might sustain drives again at some point in the game, and they really didn't. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
Yeah. You want to just...
Yep, we're good.
Let me clear my throat.
That's deep. Nope, not there yet.
Wowzer. You got a little old DB.
Yeah, I got the got that old DB.
Frog in the throat.
No, I'm trying to sound like our guy Jack there with that deep raspy voice. You know.
Oh yeah.
Don't sound as cool as him.
What did you say it was yesterday? 3.
Yeah, he said it was 3 in Tennessee, which that's pretty cold down there. Their high was 12 yesterday.
A lot of folks in coats last night at the game.
Yeah, it was. I believe it was chilly for good old Atlanta.
Yeah. But not necessarily hot Atlanta.
Probably would still make the trade for what we've got here, but that's all right.
Yeah, although I did see, very sad to have seen, like the next 10 days, it's like
warms up a little bit,
mid-30s and a couple low 40s.
I'm not sad about that.
Like what happened?
Yeah,
like you'll be fine. You got snow tomorrow, so you'll be good.
It's not gonna snow tomorrow.
You gonna get a little snow?
What's that?
You gonna get a little snow?
Man, what? Shane, what makes you think it's going to snow?
It's going to be like 2 inches. I mean, we know you know about 2 inches.
What happened? Coming up on the show today, we've got Bill Bender from the Sporting News, talk college football at 8.
I'm certainly letting that ride.
At 9 o'clock, we've got Mike Schaefer,
well,
Husker 24/7.
It's going to snow tomorrow.
Got Mike Schaefer, Husker 24/7, coming up at 9. That's the lineup for today.
What better guy to talk to about the day after than the guy that's in the heart of it?
Our guy Bill Bender?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
right in his wheelhouse.
We'll talk a little national college football, some ramifications off the national championship. I don't know, a
couple way too early top 25, which I always think are funny.
Love a way too early top 25.
Well, actually it could be detrimental this year because those preseason rankings apparently carry a ton of weight.
Yeah, we certainly saw what they did in terms of how teams ended up in the final polls. Like if you're gonna be good, it helps you out. But if you're kind of on that border, or that fence where you're like, I don't know what this team is, like being preseason, I saw one where Illinois is preseason number 12. Is that good for them or bad for them?
Well, I think that's good for them.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think it's.
Yeah, a lot of margin for error.
What do you mean?
You can get back into good graces with stumbles quicker than you can coming from off the radar.
See, I worry about the expectations.
Oh, that's a fan thing.
No, but that's what I mean. That's why it can be a problem, right?
Yeah, it's better for the team. Like, you want to be on the radar.
Sure, if you think you're going to be good.
You want to be on the radar. Well, I mean, it's not like teams are like, man, I don't know.
I get that. Everybody thinks they're going to be good on.
Yeah, so you just mean
January.
like as a fan.
Not just as a fan, but
it's better for the team.
But as a program,
it's better for the team.
Like the individuals in the locker room.
It's better for the team.
That's fine. But as a program in general, sometimes the wrong expectations can be detrimental.
Yeah, so like sure, but again, you have more room for error. Like, let's say Illinois is not that team. They're preseason top 12. They go 0-2. More apt to get a chance to come back with any sort of a run.
Sure.
Based on the fact that they were well thought of before, versus if you're unranked at all and you start off 0-2 and then you go on the run.
My argument is, if they're just an 8-4 team, like if that's who they are next year, then the expectation that they should be better than that can be bad for the team.
Yeah.
Like if let's take Nebraska, for instance, right?
Okay.
Let's say Nebraska, I've seen them on the back end of a couple of top 25s.
Yeah.
We both expect Nebraska to be better next year, to have improvement. Back into the top 25 is probably in the range of where they could end up, depending on what the record is, or depending on what other people's records are. But if you're sitting here and you go, okay, they got question marks here, question marks there.
Here a mark, there a mark, everywhere a mark.
I agree that preseason rankings can be helpful if you think you can make the playoff, because then it does give you more margin for error. But if you're just a team trying to build and you get put on the radar too early, then the expectations from your fan base, internally, everywhere else, can be detrimental to that team. You get what I'm saying?
No. I mean, sure, it's a reach, but yeah.
Gotta be careful. It's not good for everybody.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it'll affect the players, but it affects the program.
Not really.
It can.
I mean,
expectations get coaches fired.
I could die on the way home too. I mean, anything can happen.
Expectations get coaches fired. That's my point.
Okay, sure.
I mean, they do.
Sure. They won't get him fired in Illinois, though. But
I'm not saying for Bielema specifically.
Generally speaking, sure. It's okay.
All right. I mean,
you don't have to turn tail. I think
I'm not turning tail.
I just think it was kind of weak. It's okay.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Is I think the wrong expectations, will get a coach fired.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Lane Kiffin's in danger, but the fact that people thought they were going to be really good this year.
I think guys in that position, just generally speaking, no, you can't take the good or the benefit of the doubt without taking what comes with it. Like, now, if you said that about Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, sure, right? I could be more inclined to agree with you, but they're still Alabama to begin with, and
sure,
he reaps the benefits from them being Alabama, right? Like they were actually in the discussion as a 3-loss team because they were Alabama, not because of anything else other than that. So I think you just have to take
right. But if they were preseason ranked 8th instead of 2nd, I don't remember what they were last year, but I think they were in the top 2 or 3. If they were preseason ranked 8th or 10, they still get most of the benefit of being Alabama without people thinking.
Maybe if you just said 20th. Okay,
well, pick your number, like wherever the line is for you.
I think it matters.
Right. Well, my point is,
like if I'm Georgia and I'm preseason 20, you don't think I feel like I have some grace, or do you think they feel pressure?
I think people around Georgia would say, "What's wrong with this team?
This isn't like one of our better teams.
Yeah.
This could be," but they could also accept where they're at too, right? Like, oh, hey, we're rebuilding here and here. 20 for us, even for Georgia. This sounds about right. It's not like, ooh, we're 20. Like, I don't get what when you have a school that has a certain perception that comes with it. That's where the real indication is. So it's not like for an Illinois or a UNLV or
maybe Indiana's a better example of this. Like if you're Indiana and you get preseason ranked in the top 10, 12 again, but you look at this and you go, okay, listen, we might still be good, but we sort of caught lightning in a bottle this year. That's probably not replicable in the same way, even if long-term they're going to be okay. Like that can cause issues. Now, he's not in trouble because it's Curt Cignetti and they're thrilled to death with him right now. But if you're that type of program, Arizona State's maybe a good example here. Like they still might be able to contend for the Big 12, but I saw them preseason ranked like 7 or 8. And I look at that team and I go, okay, we really feel like, does Arizona State think this is who they are now? Because I don't know if they are or not, but if you're not, and that's the expectation, that's a bad place to be.
So, yeah, so back to my very first original comment to you about that is, like, it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a bad thing for a coach and a player because your margin of error, it's already built in. That's the whole counter argument to preseason rankings is that those teams that were thought of have more of an opportunity.
Sure, you get thought of longer.
Yeah.
No, I get that. There is a benefit. I get that, but there's only a benefit if you're actually good.
I disagree. I disagree. If Arizona State, let's say they're marginal and they're preseason top 7.
I'm talking about teams that overachieved this year, basically. That's basically what I'm talking about.
So programs that you're not
like they probably should have been closer to 8. Like BYU's a good example. I love BYU. They probably shouldn't have won quite as many games as they did this year. And then next year, if you're like, oh, well, we won 10 last year, we're returning a bunch of guys.
See, I would have stuck with Arizona State.
I think it's true for both.
Because I think they maximized. And then
you lose Scatterbo.
And then some.
And then you lose a really key piece that maybe people undervalue because they brought in a transfer that ran for 1,100 yards.
Wide receiver.
Like that. Like if you overachieved a little this year and then you get preseason ranked off of that, that's not great for your program. I don't think.
Still, though, you got some grace, though. You go 1 and 2 and you fall out of the top 25. You go on like a 5-game heater, you'll be right.
You're all of a sudden back in it.
Yeah.
But what if you don't have that 5-game heater in you?
I don't know. What if you were never ranked and you start 1 and
2? Then you go on that 5-game heater and they're like, all of a sudden, oh, hey, Arizona State, a little below the radar.
You'd be Georgia in basketball.
You're still 6 and 2 either way. That's DB. I'm Ravi. We'll be back to wrap up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar exterior stage, reminding you to keep your eyes focused and straight ahead. I know it's cold out there, probably trying to get your heat seats going and trying to get that air pumping. Make sure you do that before you start driving. You gotta stay locked in. It's cold out there. That doesn't mean you can let your distraction or let your eyes wander and get distracted. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. All right, so we're talking about this whole thing with expectations and preseason rankings, right?
Yeah.
Because the too early preseason rankings drop like the minute that clock gets 000s, right?
Yeah.
Stuart Mandel hits press send on that thing.
I was just looking at a couple in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and they're fun to look at. I like looking at them. I like all this stuff. I do.
Like, do you think like Dan Mullen's thinking, oh no, they got us, man. They got us preseason top 25.
No,
he's probably like, man, good for UNLV. They hired me. I'm the right guy.
So here,
you know what I mean?
There's 2 different versions of this, right? And we were sort of separating into blue bloods and not blue bloods. I would like to separate into overachieved last year and were actually good. Because I think that's where the difference lies for me.
All right, now full disclosure, I'll let you have the runway. I'm not. It's gonna take some convincing for me.
Sure.
For you to
get
swallow overachiever. I hate the term.
I get it.
So
I'm gonna use it generally, right?
So
And listen, you take the wins that
the floor is yours if you're starting with the premise of such a thing as an overachiever.
I am starting with the premise, and I'm going to use that term lightly. I get the wins count, and you take them however you can get them, and Nebraska certainly would, right? So when I say overachiever, I don't even say that disparagingly. I mean in the sense that compared to how games usually play out, like if you're playing the law of averages, that normally your record would be a little worse than it was this year.
Okay.
Right?
So you're talking like puck luck or?
Yeah, just like things, you catch some breaks, you get some games. That's why I use BYU as an example. There was a few games this year where BYU was on the fortunate end of things. You just imagine there'll be a regression to the mean on that.
Okay.
That's all I mean by overachiever. And so you take a team like Arizona State or Illinois or Indiana or BYU, and I sit there and I go, okay, is their roster to the place yet where they can replicate that number of wins without catching some of that luck or some of those quality breaks, right? Now, some of those teams create quality breaks. That's the thing we talked about with Iowa for years is like, oh man, they can't keep doing this. They can't keep doing this. No, that's just kind of what they do, right? Most teams aren't that way. There's usually some things that regress to the mean with turnovers or like fumble recoveries or whatever, like some field position, like lost yardage or unseen yardage luck on special teams. There's a lot of those things that sort of tend to regress to the mean. Nebraska's been the opposite. Nebraska's been way worse than the averages for years. And we're like, oh, it can't keep getting that bad. And obviously there's been something.
That's just at some point, it's just whoever that said team is.
But for most teams, that regresses back to some sort of an average. And so I'm sitting here and I go, okay, is Arizona State's roster in a place where if they regress back to the average and they lose some key pieces like a Cam Scatterbo, that their roster is good enough to replicate that without some breaks, right? Or if the breaks are more evenly split than they were last year. Same thing with BYU. People didn't think BYU was going to be good this year, and they caught some breaks. And is their roster in a place where they can replicate that season without catching those breaks again? That's where those are the teams that I think it's detrimental for them to be overranked in these preseason polls based on what they did last year. I don't know if Illinois is in a place roster-wise where they can replicate a 9 or 10 win season. I really don't. They caught some breaks. Just look at the Nebraska game, for instance. There were some quality breaks they caught there. They had a 50-50 touchdown overturned and went back their way. They had a quarterback who's a true freshman and misses a wide-open guy in the end zone for a touchdown. Like, they had some missed field goal luck as well. Like, just in that one game, you can point to a bunch of things that theoretically would go back to an average. And then you go out through the course of Illinois season, and that type of thing happened a lot. The wins still count. They obviously had resolve and enough talent to take advantage of it, but you can't count on those things. And if you can't count on those things, where's your roster at? Can you still get to 9 or 10 wins with that roster? And if that's not where you're at as a roster, then being preseason ranked too high, I think is detrimental.
Yeah, I don't love any of, like, I certainly don't like Indiana as an example because they won by.
They beat people's heads in.
Yeah. So, Illinois, I think, is a good example of a team that was a little ahead of schedule. That did quarterback play that was better than I think people thought.
For sure. Even people at Illinois.
So I don't love the BYU example. I don't like any of the real examples you gave of the teams. Now, you could convince me, like, let's see if you have, really? Oh, shoot, we better go to him now. It's early.
Oh, yeah, we're a little early here on Bill Bender from the Sporting News joining us now. Talk a little college football. Bill, how are you this morning?
Oh, I'm in the Atlanta airport's as busy as it's maybe ever been, but I hopefully we'll make our flight. This checkpoint's pretty long, but you guys will keep me company here for a few minutes.
Yeah, so we've got about 3 minutes here on the back end, and then the big segment. Is that going to work?
Well, I'll stay on with you guys, but if I get to through this line, I'm going to have to leave.
Yeah.
Totally understand. Totally understand.
Yeah. See, they should, if they were ahead of schedule, Bill, and this was like 2027 with a new format, this game would have been played in your backyard, right? It wouldn't have been at some random site. You could have played this at one of the home sites, and it'd have been close to you.
All right. Well, yeah, there was high number of Notre Dame fans, high number of Ohio State fans, and they are all here now. So it was a fun game. It was a fun experience, and obviously. They tell you to get here early, but no, I mean, whatever you guys want to talk about, we can get into.
Yeah, so it's interesting, Bill. I saying this, we get ready early, and I have all these crazy thoughts, and it's minus 10 degrees. So as this hot water's hitting me this morning, Bill, at 5 o'clock, I'm thinking to myself, can two things be true at once? I was a little bit disappointed in Notre Dame because I thought they could have played better, especially on the back end. Like, that was a better secondary than I felt like what we saw last night because they got compromised in the run game. But I also, in my head, was like, that was vintage kind of Chip Kelly with the run game, knowing how Notre Dame wanted to play on the back end. There was some really good things that were going on back and forth. Could I feel like Notre Dame should have played better, but Ohio State had a nice game plan?
Both, yeah. I think, that first drive by Notre Dame was all runs, a lot of Riley Leonard. He had 9 carries, and they did a nice job. And then, Ohio State, I thought Will Howard was just on point. You can't stop that passing attack. They played very well. And I thought, like you said, Chip Kelly had some really good play design.
Yeah.
Really good play design. And sorry, they're splitting us into 2 lines. I want to make sure I'm in the right one.
Way to multitask.
Jeremiah Smith, that first touchdown to him was great play design. The running game was working. I thought Quinshon Judkins had a great game. And, you got to credit Ryan Day. They were aggressive in the right spots. And, Notre Dame's defense, I thought, would give Ohio State more problems than they did. And they just didn't do that in the first half.
Yeah, I think that's where I landed as well, where I just thought more of Notre Dame's defense than we ended up seeing, especially in sort of that middle section of the game, about halfway through the second, through the start of the third. Is there, did you walk away from that being more impressed with Ohio State and what they were able to do, or kind of like DB was saying, I thought Notre Dame left some things out there?
Yeah, I think that when you build a 31-7 lead, obviously you're doing some things right on the offensive end. And Will Howard, I think he completed his first 10 passes, something like that.
13.
14 to 15 at one. Yeah, 14 to 15 at one point. And I think, the next conversation with him will be, what's his NFL career look like? So, will somebody go for him on, I don't know about first round, but at least day 2, and he may have a nice NFL career as a result. But again, I just think Ohio State, you look at the way that they blitzed through this college football playoff in those 4 games, it was a testament to how they bounced back after the Michigan loss on November 30th, which still people were sitting in the press box and in the media rooms afterward asking, how in the world did that happen?
Yeah, so it's, this is the total coach in me, so bear with me. When you go through something like that with the loss and the pressure and what surrounds the Michigan-Ohio State game, that takes a unique perspective, right? Like, you have to be in that to feel the magnitude of that moment. But we always judge it when we watch it play out from the outside. So I'll leave that there. But the fact that he got those guys to rally for that 4-game stretch, given what was going on around him and the magnitude of what was going on around him, I mean, quietly, that's got to be one of the most impressive rally jobs that I can actually remember. And I'm not sure it's not a lot of hyperbole in that, Bill.
No, it feels a little bit like the NFL. They made their playoff run like you would make in the NFL, and to win 4 games the way that they did in the convincing fashion that they did speaks to how good of a coach Ryan Day is and what he did for that program. And, he joins an elite company that includes Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer. I mean, both of those coaches were there as well. So it definitely made for a really exciting experience. And for Ryan Day, I don't even want to use the term validation. I just think he did a nice job.
Bill, we got to take a break here real quick. We're going to try and stay on the line with us. If you are still there and not through security, we will come back to you here in just a few minutes, Bill.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks, Bill.
We'll be back more Hurrdat Sports Radio with Bill Bender coming up next. Kicking off hour number 2, Hurrdat Sports Radio, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DBM Ravi, Lulla. We're here once again with Bill Bender of the Sporting News. Bill, appreciate you coming back with us here. We'll jump right in. I know you've only got a few minutes. As you kind of look at these two teams, Ohio State and Notre Dame, and you can expand this to the larger playoff next year as well, or the larger playoff field for next year as well. Which of these teams do you look at and say, hey, obviously Ohio State's still going to be really good. They're replacing some guys. Who do you like that's best set up for next year?
Ohio State, Texas, Georgia's going to be very good again. And then, Penn State had a lot of guys come back, and, that looks like the usual suspects. But if you look at our way too early top 25, that's what we're getting, the usual suspects. So I think that's, but there'll be some interesting teams. The Big Ten will be good for 3 or 4 playoff teams, and the SEC has a mess. The SEC is probably the hardest to figure out after Georgia and, Texas. After that, it becomes 3 through 8 becomes a bit of a mess. So, certainly going to look forward to that. Those way too early top 25s, I know a lot of guys that write them. We all kind of consult each other and come up with a consensus. But, that the usual suspects are the same as they were last year.
Bill, let me ask you a question, because on the heels of that, two teams that are kind of making a reemergence in terms of being highly thought of will be LSU and Clemson. And it's interesting because both coaches of those respective programs have been around for a while, gone through a few ups and downs. One stayed a little more consistent. That's Coach Sweeney. He gets Coach Allen to come and coach his defense. Clemson appears to be a team that you can trust because of Sweeney's track record. I get it. Kelly's a multi-time coach of the year. LSU seems to be a little more of a variable. You trust Kelly to kind of resettle and be who he needs to be for LSU.
Yeah, and they use the portal, and it is a big year for them. And, one of the things that we look at when we rank these teams is who's coming back at quarterback. And LSU, that question's answered with Garrett Nussmeier. So, as long as he doesn't throw interceptions, they got a tough schedule. And that's the other thing when you weigh these SEC teams, that got to look at the schedule and say this team has the fewest potholes. But LSU, I think they're going to be in the top 10 in a lot of these polls. And who was the other school? Clemson. Clemson's going to be in the top 10, and I think they kind of reasserted their power, at least individually, in the ACC, taking care of business in that conference championship game. And with Cade Klubnik back, new coordinator in Tom Allen, strong defense, they'll certainly be in the mix.
Bill, is there any teams, because we were having this discussion before you came on here about how I thought some of these preseason rankings should be detrimental to teams that maybe weren't quite there yet. I look at like a Florida, for example, who was halfway through the season last year, was kind of left for dead, gets a little hot at the end of the year. And I think you guys have them at 11 in their in your way too early poll. Can that be detrimental for a team like Florida? It's like maybe they're not quite ready to make that jump yet.
Well, we do that every year. We kind of try to pinpoint the teams. That Florida had a ton of momentum at the end of the year. DJ Lagway had a great season and or a great finish to the season anyway. I don't remember. We didn't think they were going to win a game in November, and they end up winning, turning it around a little bit, and that's why they get a little bit of that hype. Illinois would be another team that would classify as that, winning 10, and we also look at teams that have a lot of production returning. So I think the Illini, I talked to some people that like them as high as 9, and then the others that would say, well, they probably won't be ranked. So, those are the kind of teams that we spend a lot of the summer talking about.
Bill, in your opinion, just kind of keep you national here because of just your scope. How good can Lenore Sellers be, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's another question. They had they won that bowl game, they would have probably been ranked 6th, which is how it's weird that we value it like that when we say the bowl games don't matter. But Lenore Sellers is probably the star quarterback the SEC didn't have this year, or has the potential to be, because of his ability to run the football, because of the dual threat. And, again, South Carolina, another one of those SEC teams. I feel like you've asked me about, like Florida and LSU, and then you could talk about Tennessee in that sense, and even Alabama in that kind of group where they're really tough to sort out from 2 to 9. And, they're going to have 8 or 9 teams ranked. But South Carolina, we have them right in the teens, but I could see a lot of I I think they'll end up being ranked higher when we get to August.
Bill, as we kind of look at, I'm glad you brought up some of those teams. We look at a Tennessee and some of these other teams, and especially in the SEC, and I go, okay, the way some of these seasons ended, the way some of these bowl games went, how much do you value some of those results when it maybe looked like the SEC wasn't quite as good in some of those areas as maybe we thought they were during the season?
Well, no, and I thought their conference schedule was tough. That was the difference for me. Is they, I do think their home and road environments are tough, top to bottom, because there's probably a little more parity. It's different though because we're so used to the SEC having Alabama or Georgia and them being untouchable, and they didn't have that this year. So I think it worked both ways. It made the conference more fun to watch on a week-to-week basis. But you picked off some of your potential playoff teams as a result. I mean, to me, the death knell for Alabama was going to Oklahoma and playing as poorly as they did. And after that happened, it was tough to justify them being in the playoff. I mean, South Carolina and Ole Miss, they also had duds. So, but yeah, to your point, I just, they didn't have a player finish in the top 10 in the Heisman. So where are the star players? And of course, the Big Ten, when Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and Notre Dame, well, Notre Dame's not in the Big Ten, but they're part of the Midwest, are all clicking at the same time. I mean, you can't help but wonder how much of that is NIL.
Bill, it's interesting. You kind of look at how I think next year could turn out, and whether it's Arizona State or Kansas State. I like Iowa State. I think Lashley's going to do a good job at SMU. How did it seems like quietly the Big 12 landed on its feet? You remember our conversations like just as early as 2 years ago. Like, how did they do this from a depth standpoint to come out kind of smelling like this?
Well, I think some of it's a lesser version of the SEC, right? They had the parity, and none of us picked Arizona State to win the conference, and they became one of the most fun teams in the country. Colorado did what they did, and BYU, I mean, they probably get the least attention of those three schools, and they had a really solid season, and I think they're going to be very good next year. So, when you put all that together and have the parity that conference has, and you're getting teams in the playoffs, and that's what matters. I think Brett Yormark, I would have never said that 5 years ago.
I'm glad you said that. See, we're honest, right? We can eat it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and I probably wrote that. I probably wrote that the conference was on life support or something like that. But, yeah, it's an amazing job. And, I believe we have 4 or 5 of their teams, I think 4, ranked in our way too early top 25, all those teams I mentioned.
So LJ Martin's coming back for BYU, right? I know they get Retzloff back.
Yeah, they've got a lot coming back. And a couple of their linebackers that were – among their leading tacklers, they were solid. And the way they played in that bowl game, it's hard not to look at them and say, and they're tough at home. They just had a couple duds along the way.
Bill, as you kind of look as you're at these preseason top 25s and the way the season played out, is there any truth to kind of this growing narrative of, hey, maybe the Big Ten is replacing some of that SEC superiority?
Well, I think the Big Ten, the coast-to-coast feel of it, and having back-to-back national champs. That's never happened in my lifetime. When you have Michigan win it and Ohio State win it, and then, you look into next year and you've got Penn State trying to be that team next year with everybody coming back. And then, the competitive coast-to-coast value is what I would call it. I think USC will get better. I think, Nebraska continues to take steps in the right direction. And you're going to – I think Michigan next year will be a little bit like Nebraska was this year, with an exciting freshman quarterback that you're going to learn and grow with. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be great.
Bill, I'm going to get you out of here on this so you can get home safely. Freeman is obviously held in super high regard, and he took it on the chin last night and owned every bit of it. They've changed their profile dramatically in just a handful of years. I look at the way that they're recruiting. Are we working with admissions now? It's the same caliber of quality of player, but the athleticism and the star ranking seem to be growing with Notre Dame. Did something happen that we fell asleep at the wheel, or is that just the prowess of Marcus Freeman?
No, yeah, I think I like the way they fought. They were down 31-7, and we could have all wrote the, Notre Dame chokes in a big game again column, but I like the way that they fought. And crazy, it was an 8-point game, and they had a third down.
Yep.
So I love the fight with him. I like his personality. I think he's perfect for that program.
They seem built for the long haul, too.
I agree, and he's young, and I was joking with other shows. I was like, my wife and other wives think he's very attractive, and I was like, I'm sitting right here. So he sets a very high bar for the rest of us, and I think he relates well to the players, and that's the biggest thing with Marcus Freeman. So impressed with his demeanor, his poise, and he's a competitor. I agree with you. I think they're built for the long haul, and they're going to be a playoff regular, and they'll learn from this experience. And I think they just need a little more, right? Just a few more guys.
Is the sense around there, can CJ Carr push Angeli?
Yeah, I think that's going to be exciting to see. I mean, Carr was a 5-star recruit. Anytime you are allowed to, I think sometimes when you have the time to develop him, he may come out. And so that will be an exciting quarterback battle, one of those many storylines I'm looking forward to see next year. And by the way, Texas and Ohio State playing week 1, so we won't have to wait long.
That's Bill Bender, Sporting News. Bill, we appreciate it. Enjoy your flight. Get home safe. We appreciate you.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. This has been an interesting experience this morning. Thanks. But I knew you guys would get through it.
We get it.
So much for having out.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
That's Bill Bender from the Sporting News. Appreciate him navigating the security line
it's incredible.
while he's hanging out with us. Would have been real easy just to tell us he couldn't come on today, and we appreciate that for sure. But he was talking about the early games next year. One of them that I'm looking at that I think is going to be kind of an early indicator for a couple teams that highly underperformed, although in very different ways this year. You know what game I'm talking about? I don't know if you've looked at the schedule yet.
I do not.
Alabama at FSU.
Oh, yeah.
That's a game where a couple of coaches are going to have early narratives in that game between Kalen DeBoer and Mike Norvell.
I tell you, FSU is they seem to have had a fairly good offseason.
They did some work in the portal for sure.
So
they really did.
I'll be curious to see if they can bounce back because I've always thought he was a good coach.
I genuinely am still stunned at what happened last year. Like I understand the step back, but I thought 6 or 7 wins at worst.
So I was kind of surprised 2 teams you didn't use that are close to your wheelhouse to make your point.
What's that?
FSU with their preseason ranking last year.
Yeah.
Because you said for a long time in the offseason, I don't know if they're very good.
Yeah, I thought they were like 8-9 wins, not 2, obviously. But I didn't think they were a national title
one
contender.
that I would have probably listened to that could be detrimental.
Where's that?
If Nebraska was like, let's say, preseason top 25.
I mean, they are in some.
So
they are in some.
If you would have used Nebraska as an example, I probably.
You know why I didn't? Because I think that's who they are. Next year, I think that's who they are.
A top 25 team.
Yeah. So that's why I didn't use Nebraska as an example. But you're right; it could be detrimental for them because they haven't.
I probably would have bought into that
because they haven't really earned it yet. But that's why
and we would have eaten that up.
Oh yeah, it would be aggressive around here in the way that we kind of consumed that content, right?
Yeah.
We love being preseason ranked.
Yeah.
Right?
And
you're exactly right.
And we love when we're not ranked and we think we should be.
Yes.
So,
that's a conversation that's very popular around here. But I wouldn't have had too much problem with it. And I think I did see him at 24 in one. But and I don't remember which one, otherwise I'd give credit. But I think that's who they are, right? I don't know if I think that's who Illinois is. I really don't. I don't know if I think that's who. And I know you like BYU a little bit more than. I mean, I like BYU a lot, which is weird.
But yeah.
But I thought they were probably 2 or 3 wins higher than what I thought they were coming into the year. Now it's possible I was just wrong about who they were. Then they were better at some spots. But my concern is that I was right, and next year we're going to see that. And it's a lot harder to go from 10-7 or 10-8 than it is to go from 7 to 8 to 10, right? Like the fluctuation year to year, people like that linear progression, even though that's not how life or anything else really works. We kind of like that clean up and to the right, graph. that's my concern, is it's going to be a little bumpier than people realize. And if you are expecting that ride to continue to rise and you have one of those bumps, that can be a problem.
There's a lot with just the range, right? I look at guys that we kind of thumb our nose up at.
Like who?
James Franklin.
Sure.
Sweeney.
I actually think James Franklin and Penn State's in the right spot.
Brian Kelly. Like these are teams.
Brian Kelly's weird. But go ahead.
As a multi-time coach of the year.
Sure.
He clearly has been good at his job.
Yeah.
And we now do this thing with him where we insinuate that he's either not very good or kind of lost his fastball, or
I think it's just a weird fit at LSU.
Okay. And maybe that's it.
I think it's just a weird fit. Personally. That's my opinion.
You know, we went out of our way to like use him as a comparison to what Notre Dame was capable of doing on his way out of the door versus not. And typically don't do that with guys that are held in that regard. Like he's fallen out of he's fallen out of favor quickly.
That's the weird part with him, because I don't think he used to be like
But I think the same thing happened with Sweeney.
Sure.
And we already hate on James Franklin.
Yes.
So I use those three guys. And you look up, and they both have their three programs kind of in prime position heading into 2025.
LSU's one that I do wonder about, right? Because he hasn't been able to get it right with the defense there for a few years. And you look at it, you go, are we just assuming he's going to get it right this time? And are we looking at, I mean, you look at Garrett Nussmeier and you're like, that's my solution? Like, I feel really good about that.
Maybe I need to start liking him. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't really like him either. I think he's just kind of fine, right? And I look at that and I go, okay, if he hasn't been able to get the defense right and you don't have a dynamic Jaden Daniels-esque quarterback, I kind of look at them the same way I looked at USC when Caleb Williams left. I looked at how many times I tell you, like, how good is USC going to be without Caleb Williams? And then USC turned into exactly what I kind of thought they were, sort of this middling team. I sort of feel that way about LSU. Now, they're a little better than that, but I look at them, okay.
Well, they've proven they're still an attractive place to go to school.
For sure. I totally understand that. And they're dropping those bags for sure. And Brian Kelly's a pretty good recruiter, and that's always been an attractive place to play. But you look at him, you go, okay.
Am I misremembering that the state of Louisiana was in trouble with their funding, and they were going to subsidize a loan for the state university? This was just 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, allegedly they were broke.
The rest of the school might be. The football program's not.
It's just fascinating.
I mean, you're right, but when you've got,
I mean, there was like, this was on the legislative floor.
No, I get that, but people will write checks for football that they're not writing for school.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the truth, right? Like, the football program can be flush and the school can be broke at the same time. Like, it's kind of how it works at a lot of places, right? And so, I look at LSU and I go, I don't know. I don't think it's detrimental to them because they should be good enough, talent-wise, coaching prowess-wise. Like, I still think Brian Kelly's a good coach. I don't know if it's going to work at LSU. Like, it always felt like a weird fit. Like, it always felt awkward to me. But I'm glad you brought up some of those guys, because I'm kind of sitting here thinking, I go, okay, you had two pretty high-profile guys in the national championship game last night, and Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman. You brought up Dabo Sweeney. You brought up Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly and Freeman obviously connected. Out of those guys, or throw James Franklin in there too, who would you most want as your head coach right now? Today, moving forward.
Sweeney, Kelly, Franklin, and I have one more in there, right?
Freeman and Day. Sweeney, Kelly, Franklin, Freeman, Day. Those five guys.
Freeman.
I think so too. He doesn't have any national championships. Sweeney does.
Yeah, that's funny.
Kelly doesn't, but he's gone undefeated. And obviously now Ryan Day does. Let me throw Kirby Smart in there too. You taking Freeman over Kirby Smart?
Is this my preference, or if I want to?
If you're an AD and you have a job,
I'm taking Kirby Smart
over Freeman.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the line.
Championships.
No, I get that, but Dabo has championships. Now they're more recent. I get that.
I don't know. So why, if we want to like be specific about why I brought those guys up.
Mm-hmm.
So what do Sweeney, Franklin, and Kelly all kind of have in common?
Yeah, they're not thought of well.
Yeah, they have this stink on them.
No, I get it. And Kirby Smart doesn't. I get it. I was doing a different thing.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's kind of that, and it's just interesting because we're going to go right back to 25, and here they are again. So maybe we should get off their back.
Well, that was kind of my point. So you got guys that have some stink on them that probably shouldn't. You've got a guy that's got a ton of shine on him but just lost national championship. You got a guy that did have a ton of stink on him that probably gave himself a reprieve in Ryan Day. And then you got Kirby Smart, who's probably the best coach in the country right now, but we don't necessarily love how it looked this year. So you take Smart over Freeman, but Freeman over everybody else. Is that fair? Or is that where you landed?
That's tough.
Because my next question is, how sure are you on Smart over Freeman?
I'm pretty sure there.
Okay. That's the one.
I'm going to take the track record.
Okay.
Even though my personality would gravitate more towards Freeman.
Sure.
But
the track record's too much.
Yeah, I can't.
Fair.
I can't
totally fair.
Have a personal preference over success.
No,
right?
I get it. But that's kind of why I asked, because I wanted to see where the line was.
This is crazy. Because I don't leave I don't leave listening to his press conferences and excuse me and think to myself, ooh, that's a guy that I want to play for.
Mm-hmm. Freeman or Smart.
I love anything that he said. But I probably should think better of Ryan Day.
Sure.
I remember it was the broadcast. I had Nebraska Penn State or Nebraska Ohio State for the Big Ten Network.
Mm-hmm.
This was when Baptiste was a freshman.
Okay.
And I think Ohio State had just completed like 47 passes in a row and had never punted and whatever. And the very first thing they were flash and dash, right? They had your boy at quarterback and he was throwing it all over the yard.
So who's my boy?
And was it Barrett?
JT?
Yeah.
I think so.
And the very first thing he said when I made him swallow the microphone was he talked about how he wanted his teams to be tough. And they were so highly skilled. Like I just watched them basically play 7-on-7.
Mm-hmm.
And at no point was I thinking like toughness. And I looked at like Baptiste and this guy's and I'm like, my God, this dude's like, he's bigger than any player Nebraska has on defense right now. And he's their edge guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He's 6'4". He's like 240.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm like, ooh, Nebraska's in trouble.
Yeah, they don't have any of those.
With body types. And I was kind of enamored with what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, of all the things that he could have talked about, he talked about toughness. I'm like, ooh, shoot. Ohio State may be a problem.
Does that let you know he gets it? He's I can have all the toys.
But then, like, nothing.
It never really looked that way.
It never looked that way.
Until the last 4 games.
Yeah.
Right?
So now I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should have trusted my gut.
Maybe.
Because I felt like I was always defending him because all I would ever say is, well, he wins a lot.
He does win a lot. So does James Franklin win a lot.
But I defend Franklin, too.
I'm going to throw one more in there with you when we come back here. I've got one more name that I'm curious to see where you rate them in this realm of coaches. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
A move got a little reverse inside pitch. Nice play design, better execution. Abuka weaving and dodging tackles, lost the ball at the end. Oh, they let him down. They haven't made a signal yet. Yes, it is a fumble and the long-awaited takeaway. Pressure, Leonard launching, great house, but it's a catch! Touchdown, Notre Dame!
Welcome back. Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. DB, we're talking about college football coaches.
We were.
I wanted to throw one more in the hat for you.
All right. Shoot it to me.
Steve Sarkisian.
No.
Not over Freeman?
No.
Where does he what about Day?
So Day's the guy that I think I should Day's the guy that I think
you feel like you should put him ahead of Freeman, but you don't want to.
I feel like I should put. So where I was going with that story about after the game is I think he's always been that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think it's the job. I truly think it's being in Columbus.
In what sense?
Because his personality is clearly not who I think the national media wants it to be. Right? He gets this kind of, you don't really, he comes across as a little combative,
sure, a little snarky,
defensive, a little snarky.
Yeah,
like
I can see that.
He doesn't leave you with any like.
It's not real charismatic.
No, nothing real uplifting. You know, he's emotional. But I think that's okay because I think you have to be like that for that job.
Mm.
I do. I do. I've seen it eat up some really good coaches, right? And I think Urban had that same kind of snark to him. And,
sure.
And I think you have to be like that in that job. I think you can be too nice.
Urban's a little more charismatic, though. You get the the charm.
He's more polished.
Yeah, you get the polish with the snark.
Orator, but
yeah. So it's easier but it's easier to swallow. I mean, like when it comes in the package of Urban
and
Meyer.
I even think like Ohio State fans just were cool with winning, but even Urban Meyer said some things like in presses where you're like, man, this dude's pretty slick.
Yeah.
Like let's not forget about the whole
let's not forget about the narrative that after a while it's like, hey Urban, how come you haven't won any more titles?
To cover up. Yeah, so I do think you have to have some of that temperament. I think I like Day more than most. But I feel like I should have.
But probably still not as much as you should.
Yeah. Because he doesn't leave. I just don't know if he would like resonate with my personality.
Yeah. I don't ever feel good after listening to Ryan Day.
Yeah.
He's just kind of there.
But he, again,
and
I talk about Kirby's results.
Yeah.
I mean, Day, the dude wins an insane amount.
You know what I noticed yesterday more than at any other point really that I've watched Ohio State under Ryan Day? I noticed his players seemed to kind of like him more than I realized.
Yeah.
That's the sense I got yesterday, whether it was during the game, in the post-game celebration. Like it almost...
What did I tell you off air about... I'm like, you know what? I think the world they don't just owe him an apology because he won. I think they owe him an apology because he got this team galvanized at its lowest point.
Sure.
And I think as a person, this is just like this is just like the humanitarian, not like the coach.
Mm-hmm.
When you can rally from the depths of like
despair, whatever,
the bottom, to be better, I'm always going to ride with that.
Yeah. And it's an unbelievably hard thing to do.
Incredibly hard to do.
And to be able to get others to do it with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially I think what he did, it's just, and we're going to be dismissive because they have good players.
I got the sense, though.
That's the problem.
Yes. We're going to be dismissive because it's like, well, they had the best players.
Yeah.
But they had the best players against Michigan, too.
Oh, I know.
They had the best players the first time they played Oregon,
and
too.
as we've seen for a long
having the best players doesn't always get you anything.
Nope. No.
What I will say is it did kind of feel like, and again, I might be reading way too much into this just from a few interactions on the sideline. It sort of felt like the players almost felt like they owed it today to be better.
Yeah.
Because they understood that he came through on his part of the deal. He brought them all together. He put together a really good roster. They all got paid, and they weren't living up to their end of the deal. I almost felt like they were rallying behind him. That's the sense that I got. And again, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but if that's the case, then I don't think you can overstate how good of a job it was that Ryan Day did.
They got Howard to be better than I think anybody thought he was.
Oh, for sure. I didn't know coming into the year. I didn't know that he could make the types of throws consistently that he'd been making, especially the past month. There were even times throughout the season where I looked at him and I go, are you going to the first time against Oregon, the first game against Oregon, I thought to myself, is that a guy I really want to have in a 2-minute drill when I know he has to make throws?
You know, it's funny you use that game is at no point did I ever think Gabriel was.
I'm not saying he was.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just how we value the narratives of quarterbacks.
Sure. But I as you're going and, he obviously has the infamous scramble and doesn't get down in time. But I sit there and I am watching that in real time and I go, this probably isn't the guy I would want having to run a 2-minute drill when I know who you have to throw.
So you know what I think of when I think of guys like Will Howard, surrounded by the guys that he is.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever undersell having the temperament to control high-level guys.
Sure. You brought that up with Anthony Rizak a lot last year.
It's the reason I compared Anthony to – people aren't going to be able to handle this. But
to Tommy Frazier?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Their makeup, not –
There's just something about having the temperament. I tell this to Braylon Moore. If you want to be great,
mm-hmm.
if you really want to be great, because you have elite level skills.
Yeah.
You have elite level skills.
Yeah.
The next key to your greatness is you not only have to make this your team, the guys need to believe this is your team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care however many other good players we have. That's the next step in growth. It's the exact same thing I said about Tamala. People hate on Jet, right? For a multitude
Jet's
of reasons.
a good ball player.
He's not this, he's not that. I said this in the offseason.
Yeah.
I said, do you know what he has the ability to do? He can manage the chaos
all those other guys
around him.
There's a lot. Like there's a lot of other good guys in that room, right?
You think other guys don't want the ball?
Yeah.
Like don't undersell that.
A lot of mouths to feed.
And just kind of the ability to kind of take it in and distribute it's easy to lead bad players.
Yeah.
It's harder to lead a lot of good players. It just is.
Was that
and at no point did I think that was anybody else's team than Will Howard's.
Sure. 100%. Was that, I think we maybe have touched on this before. Was that the biggest difference between Tommy and Brooke?
Yes.
Was Tommy I think I was little, but it felt like Tommy didn't need you in terms of he didn't need you to like him. Nope. Felt like Brooke wanted you to rally with him.
And he just was everybody.
You know, the funny thing about that is, we describe this it factor with quarterbacks a lot, and maybe that is the it factor, and maybe it's not, but all the guys who have that it factor seem to have that. And there's this story about Joe Montana. It's one of the only stories I ever hear about him in terms of a guy in a huddle or whatever. And it's the John Candy story. You familiar with that one? So it's the Super Bowl against the Bengals, and they're about to go on that long drive to win the ball game. But it's at the very beginning of it. He goes out into the huddle. He can see guys are a little bit tense, and he goes, "Is that John Candy sitting in the end zone?" And everybody in the huddle is like, "What is this guy talking about?" And it just instantly relaxed everybody. There's a lot of good players in that huddle, right?
Yeah.
A lot of good players in that huddle that were a little bit tight. And he just had this sense of being like, I need to crack a joke here, right? And then they go on that long drive, Taylor in the end zone for the touchdown. But like that's, that's one of the first things I always think about with Joe Montana is like he had this sense that not only did he have control of the huddle, but he had a sense of what he needed to do to get those other guys in a place mentally that they needed to be.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of it, whether it's Anthony Rizak or Jet Tamala or Tommy Frazier or whoever, or Will Howard, is, hey, what do my guys need in this moment to be at their best? And that's kind of what you're talking about with Ryan Day too, right?
I think it's because you can't really see it.
Yeah, it's hard because it's not quantifiable.
Yeah.
Right? And we don't tend to like those things because it's anecdotal and you can't,
the eye roll.
You can't put a number on it. You can't put a percentage on it. You can't say, well, the probability of this happening is going to be 48% of the time. And you just have to be able to look at it and see, oh, that guy gets it. Right? And Will Howard, maybe that's the thing I didn't know about him, is that's a guy that can be in that room. Because it's not like he had a lot of experience doing that at Kansas State.
No.
He was the best player in that room by a mile.
There had to be something about his temperament.
That I'm guessing we didn't know existed. I'm guessing Ohio State didn't know it existed either, and they kind of got lucky. That's okay, though. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We will be back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla, and we're brought to you by Glow Big Red. Glow Big Red is the University of Nebraska's 24 hours of giving. Starts at noon on February 12th and concludes the following day at noon on February 13th. Glow Big Red raises funds for scholarships, colleges and departments, student organizations, fraternities, and sororities, Husker athletics, arts and culture, and various other programs around campus. To get involved, go to glowbigred.unl.edu to learn more, to donate, and to find everything you need to know about Glow Big Red. DB, speaking.
Gosh, I almost chanted that. That would have been
Glow Big Red.
Okay, knock it off.
Glow Big Red. No?
Is
that what you're going to chant?
I had enough self-control, and you didn't.
I don't. You know this about me.
Yeah, I mean, there's hope. Shoot, your boy was a mess.
The problem is I like it. I like having being a little loosey-goosey.
David, he says, you guys are really at your best when you come across topics by happenstance. That's
100% true.
You think?
Oh, yeah.
I never. It's one of the. I'm going to say this. This is totally happenstance. One of the cool things about this job is people are more cognizant of things than I am that I should be, that I never even think about.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like I'm always going to learn something.
And that was not a thing you were aware of?
No.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Well, I don't even know if I give it. I don't.
I haven't thought about it, but as soon as he said it, I was like, "Yep, that's accurate." Like the minute he said it, I was like, "That's 100% true."
I find that interesting.
And I knew
because most people don't like to be caught off guard.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because it means that either one of two things. We're either going to talk about something that neither of us are prepared to, which doesn't happen very often. But what it also means is you kind of have to stay ready on sort of everything.
Yeah.
Which is a harder way to do this job, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But it's better. I think it's better if you can do it.
And the real reason why I think that's funny is because him saying that, like when we're on breaks and stuff, or I just have, sometimes I'll walk around. I'll say to myself, did I just change my own mind? That's what's funny about him saying that.
Yeah. That's
because I'm willing.
Yeah, you'll walk through it.
He like
in real time.
He apparently appreciates that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
you'll work through it in real time.
I want more conviction. I don't want to process real time. Like I'm just being honest.
Yeah, I get it.
Right? Like
that's my job is I'm going to be 100% convicted even though I have not processed anything at all.
But it's like, and as I'm getting numbers from AMAC, he's kind of sending them over about coaches and from Matrix Analytical. It's like he's giving body to what I feel like I'm saying out loud.
Sure.
I don't feel good about not thinking better of Day, but I'm willing to entertain. It's just my personality because I don't know if he and I would mesh.
Yeah.
But my gut read on him, I think, was good.
Is that he's about the right things.
So I should, I should be.
You should like him.
I should like him.
Yeah.
But I don't. But he's really good at what he does.
He wins a lot.
No, and I'm cool with that. I just don't know if I'd be like, hey man, let's go grab a.
So your preference is Freeman, but you're not going to die on that hill because you recognize Day's really good.
Yeah,
like your personal preference.
And my it's personal.
Right.
It's not like you didn't ask me like if I want to win games.
No, well, I mean,
but my answer about Smart was winning games.
Yeah.
Right. But I do like
because I'd rather play for Freeman than Smart. Like if it's me.
No, I get it.
Like if
I'm telling you, in this day and age, is this 18 to 23-year-old me or is this me now? Like all that kind of stuff matters. But I since I can't control any of that, I have to start with what kind of kid I would want to coach.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2025, in 2024, in 2018, and in 20, I want to coach
a kid that doesn't need a babysitter.
That's my number one thing.
Yeah. That
is my number one thing. All the consternation and hand wringing about 105 and who's where and how we gonna get down to here and revenue sharing and is there gonna be enough money? What do we do with women's sports or the money? Like all of that. At the end of the day, I want the person in charge and handling those decisions and competing for jobs that doesn't need to be babysat. It doesn't matter almost what the situation is.
Yeah. No, I am not going to argue with you on that at all. I'm not because we were having this discussion.
I need the competitive stamina person. I saw, where I saw competitive stamina yesterday?
Where?
This is the dumbest example, but man, I'm telling you.
Where?
I don't even like this. Just lets you know I'm an equal opportunity lover. I don't have some particular affinity for Carrie Underwood. I've never liked her. I've never followed her.
Yeah.
I mean, I did love American Idol, right? But I was cheering my brains out for her when she did God Bless America with no audio.
And the music went out? Or the music wouldn't work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it about that I loved?
Because she was enduring. She was overcoming.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure she's panicking.
Yeah. That's her worst nightmare.
It's like
worst nightmare is the music doesn't work.
Everybody's got these goofy looks, and it's a big time song, and you're trying to unite the country, and I'm pro people, and I'm like,
would have been really easy to fail there,
right? Or to give in to the moment,
yeah, to cave,
and
like Ohio State at Michigan,
flipping Carrie Underwood like stood right there and sang that bad boy, and I was like, you're gonna force me to like you. And I didn't have an opinion.
At least for a moment, you like her. Yeah.
I didn't have an opinion either way. It's just like, oh my God, I'm going to cheer for that.
Appreciate her resolve in that moment.
Yep, in under duress.
Instantly, right?
Yep.
Because those are the people you
everybody else around. It's just what I liked. Everybody else is panicking. And it just gets chaos and just kikiing and snickering, and it's like this big time moment, and it's awkward. And somebody had to rise up, and you could have failed. You could have failed,
and you would have had an excuse.
Right.
That's the easiest time to fail, is when you have a built-in excuse, right? And so you've got this. Nobody's actually going to blame you for failing there.
It's a super dumb example to.
No, I get it though.
To show
and
what I gravitate.
You know what's funny too is. I feel like you gravitate towards that because that's the thing you value the most in yourself.
Yep.
Like that's, I think, the thing about yourself that you're most proud of is that your resolve under chaotic circumstances. And so that's what you value in other people.
Oh, and
I get it, right? Because it's more rare than we'd like to admit. And
I mean, did you watch her?
I saw some clips on social media.
Seem like an eternity.
I've had obviously on a much smaller scale, but I've had things like that happen before, right? Where either me and like my family used to sing at church or like do like in the band or whatever, or I was in choir in college or whatever. And you've got these moments where something doesn't work technically. And there is this instant where it's like, okay, do I panic or do I endure? And that's your worst nightmare if you're performing music of any kind, right? Even on a much, much smaller stage, right? And to have that moment amplified by where you're at and who's watching and how many people are watching and still be able to keep your head about you, like, is really impressive. I understand that, regardless of how you feel about it.
They're coming back from our football banquet, and there's a handful of freshmen, Jacob and Parrish and Micah were honored, and we were just talking about next year and getting ready and trying to be a two-way guy as a sophomore and this, that, and the other. And he's like, well, we got a whole nother level of this coming up after these guys with Eli and Bryson and Purify. And he's already thinking ahead. And I said, hey, man, I said, you already got to get it in your mind. I said, it's January. You just started lifting. Like I said, competitive stamina. I said, you going to barbecue or you going to mildew? Like, that's where we're at. And he didn't say anything. He came back in like 20 seconds later. He walked in his room. I'm still in the kitchen. And he's like, what does that even mean? I said, barbecue or mildew. Like, are you gonna flourish and flame on, or
you gonna let the meat go bad?
You just gonna sit and mold up? He goes, man, you're weird, but let's ride. I said, if you don't stop saying let's ride, nah.
He's trying to get on board with your guy Russell Wilson.
But that's
your boy.
That's what I gravitate towards.
Yeah. No, and I get it, because all else being equal. And even if it's not, right?
It's amazing, Daniel. He's such a hater.
What'd he say?
It wasn't it's not personal, D. He goes, I'll take everybody else's word. I can't stand her. I mean, I didn't really have an opinion. I just felt like I like the way she operated under duress.
Yeah,
and plus, D, in my defense, I have to be built like that so I don't sound like a jerk all the time when people that I don't ever cheer for do things.
something good. Yeah.
I mean, I would be I would have the worst sports takes ever if it was only about if I like somebody.
Yeah.
Because I don't like. I mean,
you don't like most people.
Shoot, man, it's hard.
That's why you're the piece of cheese guy, right? Because it's all turds, and then you're just like, let me find some cheese.
I don't want to say anything good.
Let me find some cheese
about the
most
Ravens,
most people,
the Bills, the Chiefs, the San Francisco Giants, the Boston Red Sox.
You said some nice things about the Bills yesterday, though.
Yeah, because I have to be honest.
It's true. It's true.
Right?
You rather be right than well liked, even by yourself.
Hey, 1,000%. That's on a t-shirt. Because there are days, as you know, I walk around during break and I'm mad at myself. Oh my God, this is terrible.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will be back with Mike J. Schaefer, Husker 24/7 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and joined now by Mike Schaefer, Husker 24/7. What's up, Schaefer?
Oh, not a ton. How we doing?
Mike J, how are we doing, man? I'm good. I'm good. I haven't felt great in like a week, so I've the way that I've gotten myself through this is I'm just trying to be competitive. I don't want to miss days, and it's like I want to make sure I do all my chores. Like that's how I stay functional, not feeling good, is I have to have like a competitive checklist. How are you feeling? How are you? Everybody else is passing around the kid gunk, man. Have you stayed above it?
Well, I've been fine. Which
Do
is
you
unusual.
get sick?
Oh yeah. I normally was pretty good, and then we introduced this thing called Hudson, and he goes to a place called Daycare, which is a germ factory, and they make germs there, and then they try them out on the rest of society. And sometimes they affect you, and they hit you hard in a way that you never see coming. And sometimes it's just like, I got a cold. So I was pretty bad between middle of September through early November, and went to the doctor a couple different times, did a few different things. Ultimately, it just comes down to I need to drink like way more water than I do. I think I get dehydrated too often. I think that's really what kills me. So, if we're doing a self-assessment here, I don't do a good enough job drinking water, and I have a child, so yes, I get sick.
Schaefer, speaking of Hudson, and I know you're a recruiting guy, like have there been any offers that have come in since you won the race at the basketball game? Or
I can't even believe this is the first time we talked about
I know,
this.
like is he planning to camp this summer? Like what's the next steps here?
Well, he's currently throwing items, whether it be food or toys or whatever. And so being the dad that I am, being the dad that I am, I'm really trying to take notice whether he's more left hand or right hand. Given that I prefer that he just takes a path of being a left-handed reliever, I'm thinking about tying the right hand behind his back.
I tried it. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. What if I just buy him? So this is what I heard for CC Sabathia. His dad just bought him a glove, and it happened to be, a right-handed glove. So then he learned to do everything left-handed. Is that like a route that I should go here?
Dude, I should have thought of that.
You can give it a go.
You could be like me, and this is a total true story with my youngest boy, Micah. For the first 5 years of him playing basketball, Schaefer, because I was such a bad dad, I couldn't even tell what hand he was. Because he wanted to be the other hand that I didn't want him to be, so everything looked two-handed. And I was like, I should probably lighten up. He's only 5.
He's only 5. Do it again.
It's like,
he's on the betting basketball hoop outside.
They're like,
trying to do left-handed
what hand
layups.
is he? And I was like, not the one I want him to be.
He's like Herb Brooks in Miracle, just blowing the whistle again.
I could see that. I really could see that.
I wish I was joking. You know, if you can't laugh at yourself, how can you laugh at? There's still hope for you.
Is that why Mike is so snarky?
Yeah, that damn dad, man. Should have just let me be left brain. Hey, so Schaefer, this is funny, and you and I joke about this, and you give me a hard time on social media because it goes against everything I believe. But I am telling you here, while I have you face to face, I do not love and support the Dodgers getting every good player on the planet. It's not my favorite. I'm not going to say don't do it.
Oh, so you're mad about it?
But I do think the fact that
you want to give any of them back?
That you have introduced Plucky to my every other day vocabulary.
Those plucky underdog Dodgers.
It's like your greatest accomplishment in the last 2 years, even though I've known you for almost 13 now. Like the Plucky is fantastic. So thank you.
Well, I mean, look, when you're describing the sort of team that the Dodgers are and the kind of attitude that they have to overcome the tough environment that they face in Major League
Lack
Baseball,
of resources, it's tough.
They're probably the only team that I've ever seen will have a 15-man pitching rotation because they're just going to cycle them through. That way, nobody has to pitch more than once every week and a half. There's no way anyone's arm will ever be tired. It's just going to be amazing. Imagine being somebody like Gavin Stone or one of the young guys, and it's like you look up this offseason and it's like, oh, Blake Snell. Well, there's one less rotation spot. We just added this guy from Japan that everybody's excited about. There's another less. Oh, Ohtani's going to be thrown again soon? That's not good for me. Oh, Jack Flaherty's still out there and nobody's going to pay for him? I guess the Dodgers probably will. I wonder if they'll trade me.
Yeah, so I thought he did enough to command pretty good dollar on the open market.
Flaherty?
Yeah.
I think everyone's scared of him.
Just
got kind of the 1 year, and then the arm might fall off, and he's probably got a bunch of those offers where it's like you can opt out after the first year if you're good because we don't really believe that you're going to be, and then nobody's spending money outside of one team in baseball. You might be familiar with that team, the Plucky.
So let me ask you something, Mike J. Why do you think, because deferred money isn't new, like anybody's capable of doing it. Why don't you think more people have figured that out?
I don't know that there are a lot, like if Cleveland wanted to offer deferred money to, let's say, Teoscar Hernandez,
who the Dodgers stole, by the way.
That agent would laugh Cleveland off the phone. If you're going to Cleveland for the entirety of a season, chances are you want your money up front.
You want every dime owed to you immediately.
I think the teams that get to defer money play in markets where players generally seek to play with the big lights and the big opportunities. I don't know that Milwaukee or Cleveland or Detroit or Pittsburgh, which they're not, none of those teams are spending money anyways. The Twins, they can't offer deferred money, so it's the best that anybody can do are the opt-out things. But then the scary part is if the player that you're scared about and you want him to opt out, and then it's Carlos Correa and he ends up sticking around with the Twins, and there's not a lot that, now they have to cut money because they don't feel like they can operate $130 million payroll anymore, which isn't even that much. It's a tough spot for the sport. I mean, I make fun of the Dodgers, but I do appreciate at least someone's paying players, because the worst part of this would be if nobody was. If we were back to that, where it's just like everyone's just band together to spend no money, which is what baseball was just a few years ago.
Yeah, you mean you don't want another Bryce Harper, Manny Machado offseason where you're in spring training before anybody's like, hey, these are the two best guys on the market. Does anybody want them?
Yeah, I would rather not that. I would rather people agree that baseball owners are actually wealthy and make money and can afford to sign players. and sit on billion-dollar assets. But no, we got to treat it like it's an investment. It's owning a sports team is an investment. It's not an opportunity. It's not like one of the rarest things on earth. It's an investment. They got to get their money out of it first. They're going to be broke otherwise.
Dave, the funny thing about that is they could spend like a drunken sailor on leave, and it is such a good investment that they would still probably 5 to 10x their money. Like if we're being honest,
the Dolans who own Cleveland bought it for $300 million in 2002. Like they will recoup that money so many times over.
Yeah, what is it, like a $3 billion franchise?
$2.5 billion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably not a 3, but it's $2.5 billion, I'm sure, by the time that they were to sell it.
Schaefer, let me transition. We're going to keep you all over the place because
that's fine. That's fine. I'm good with that.
When did because the whole narrative of the conference, the SEC, the Big Ten, and we see it all the time now that everybody can play players. It's the SEC demise. But how do you pit that kind of narrative and us poking fun at the SEC and it's all cool versus what actually happens with all conference teams and actual drafts on drafting day when we have talent discussions within the conferences? Are those going to be two separate arguments going forward, do you think?
I mean, I think they are. One of the the tweets that got mocked endlessly this year was the Senior Bowl director, Jim Nagy, put out there that he knows the SEC is the best conference in the country and it deserves more teams in the playoff because he watches so much film and they're inviting all of these players from the conference to the Senior Bowl. And I understand that there's a world in which the draft represents talent with a capital T, but you guys know just as well as I do that just because a guy doesn't get drafted doesn't mean that he isn't a very important, impactful college football player that has a ton of value. Like what they're looking for in the draft isn't necessarily the same thing as being a better college football player. I mean, guys, we see it a lot. Like guys get drafted in the NFL off. It's just it's the same conversation in a lot of ways as recruiting, and then versus high school production or just production in general. And then you magnify it in the NFL where who was it? Ezekiel Ansah was drafted and barely played. He was a top 10 pick. And so you're looking for production. You're looking for, or not production, you're looking for measurables. You're looking for potential and all of these things. And that's no different in the NFL draft. And so I do think like we get overexcited about how many first round picks are on a team. And sometimes those aren't even the best players on the same team. And so it's, the conversation of being a great football team isn't just how many draft picks come off of it, or a great conference isn't how many first round picks come out of that conference. It's part of the conversation. And the SEC might lead the way, but no one who actually watched football and wasn't just already wired to think the SEC was the best conference ever would look at Oklahoma and look at Vanderbilt and these other teams and be like, well, they went 6-6, but really they're like a 9-win team. I just don't think that's true. Like I think they had a down year and that happens. And next year they might be right back to where they were before. And that's just a cycle that happens in athletics. Like I genuinely think the Big Ten and the SEC are superior to the ACC and the Big 12 if you stack it up across. But between themselves, it's just a matter of sort of how things fall as to which conference is quote unquote better year in and year out. And this year, it very much to me was the Big Ten, and I think we saw that play out.
Hey, real quick, Schaefer, I've been asking. I'm curious to get your thoughts, especially with some of the rankings and the way too early top 25 for 2025. Number one, would you rather be in the Big 12 or the ACC? And are you surprised if your answer is the Big 12? That just like 3 or 4 years ago, we thought that conference was in big trouble.
I think the Big 12, in large part, because there's no team that is positioned to just kind of dominate. So if you're in the Big 12 and you get the right infrastructure, you could rip off like what we saw Arizona State do, and then they went and competed against Texas. Like I think several teams could do that year in and year out at the Big 12. Like I don't know that there's anyone that's just positioned in such a way that they're going to dominate. If Utah can stay out of its own way and health-wise, Utah can be a program that can play in the college football playoff and is a matchup that people wouldn't be excited about getting. You know, if you get the best version of Texas Tech after they splashed all this money in the portal, that could be a team that could be in the college football playoff in 2025. So I think the Big 12 has a lot of upward mobility, but also a lot of really sort of intriguing teams that are doing different things. I mean, I'm fascinated by what Iowa State can do, and if they can continue to build off of what they are. I can't say that about a lot of ACC teams. I mean, you have Miami, who is trying to buy their way into the college football playoff with their portal and efforts, you know, and they're somewhat sardonically said there. But you've got Florida State and
FSU
Clemson.
could easily be those three teams could all be top 12.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to say that, but I just feel like the rest of the ACC, like the middle of the ACC, doesn't strike me as quality as the middle of the Big 12. If you're coming out of the Big 12 as Big 12 champion, I feel like you played a pretty legit schedule for the most part. The ACC, I don't know if I feel the same way, because I just don't know about the middle of that conference. And it might just be a bias thing, because which of the two am I going to watch more? I'm probably more likely to have former Big 12 schools on my television than I am watching Louisville take on Syracuse.
Yeah,
unless
so you
it's like a Thursday night.
Would you rather be Texas Tech and SMU, or would you rather be Louisville and NC State?
Texas Tech and SMU.
See, that's interesting, but I kind of think you're right.
I kind of think Texas Tech, just with the way the portal sort of went for them, I think Joey McGuire's I think they're going to be a really trendy. We get deeper into this offseason, you're going to have people put their predictions out for the playoff. I think they're going to be a really trendy pick out of the Big 12.
No, they're dead to me. I picked them 2 years ago as my dark horse. And
are we forgetting SMU's in the ACC?
We are forgetting that. I was thinking TCU.
I phrased that. I phrased that wrong. Like I was kind of trying to do 3 for 3.
Gotcha.
Like the middle of one conference versus the middle of another conference, because SMU gets the K-State comparison. ISU for me would be like his Texas Tech.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm just trying to
compare the middles.
Yeah, compare the middles of the conferences.
I think SMU honestly is.
SMU. Would you take SMU over like K-State or Iowa State?
Yes.
And Texas Tech?
Yes.
I think over time, yeah, because they're going to be better funded. They're going to have
they just have
talent.
Bleep you money.
I think they're going to be a really interesting.
So who's SMU's peer? It's Texas Tech, right? Like that's what I was. And I probably did say it wrong. It's
ultimately their
Texas
peer
Tech
is going to be
or
TCU,
SMU.
right?
Gotcha. Yeah, maybe it's TCU, because TCU also has. I mean, they're very similar in the amount of money they have privately.
But are they
Smaller
spending it in the portal like that?
They probably could. I don't know if
SMU and Texas Tech are spending.
They're going hard. I don't know if Texas. My question, and I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if Texas Tech can spend this way every year.
So they can.
Okay.
They're backed by oil money.
Okay, fair. I didn't know.
It's a super weird deal where this transitions back to Landman, but they're basically backed by oil money at this point in their collective. And so the idea was they were going to throw a bunch of cash, and they threw a lot of cash.
Which is totally fair, because I don't historically think of Texas Tech as well funded, right?
No, this is a Boone Pickens type thing. That's what this is. This is a Boone Pickens type deal at Texas Tech. They have a major benefactor out of the oil area.
And it's weird to be having all this Big 12 evolution talk without even referencing Oklahoma State. And
I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do with that.
Because he's fallen out of
he's fallen out
of favor.
Isn't this what happens with Mike Gundy, though? He'll have a 2-year stretch where it's like, this guy is cooked. And then all of a sudden he's in the Big 12 championship game.
So
they'll hire some coach from NAIA level, and that guy will be the best coordinator anyone's seen all year.
Schaefer, I joked early. This is probably a couple months ago with Ravi about Gundy, and I said, does he have a Stoops 2.0 reboot to
like his Lincoln Riley run
to get Okie State right? And does he?
I don't know who it is, but he's done that before. I mean, he's done it where he's went out and he found the defensive coordinator. I can't remember. Jim Knowles. He had Jim Knowles at one point. I mean, he's He's found guys. I can't remember who the coach was that he went down to the D2 level, pulled this guy out to be his offensive coordinator, and they had the big year. I mean, he had Dana Holgerson in 2010. Like, I mean, Mike Gundy, I think, knows coaches. He is a certified crazy person with a capital C. But I think that guy knows football at a super high level, and he's successful in what is an outpost because he knows football at a really high level. It doesn't work year in and year out. It takes kind of the right sort of situation for everything to come together. But he's a hard guy to bet against. He's just a strange individual. Like, I keep waiting for him to leave Oklahoma State, and yet here we are.
It appears like he keeps trying. I
think he's wanted out for a while, but I don't. I don't know that any school is like, you know what we want? This guy.
All right. So we had this conversation earlier about me thinking on the fly real time, and it's always dangerous because sometimes I end up disagreeing with my own thoughts. Let me ask one more time. Are we sure we'd rather be the Big 12? I'm listening to this whole conversation because at first I was kind of vibing with you, Schaefer, especially with the middle of the pack and the depth in the Big 12. But I'm trying to compare the middle teams in the conference, and both you guys said you picked 2 ACC middle of the pack teams over 2 Big 12 teams going forward. So are we talking at the bottom of the conference, Schaefer?
No, I said that I would take Texas Tech, and then I was thinking TCU, and you said SMU. But I would take the middle of the Big 12 over the middle of the ACC.
I think the ACC stops at about 4.
Yeah.
And maybe North Carolina, depending.
I don't think
they're more.
Here's the other way to look at it, Damon.
They're more top.
I don't think ACC schools are going to commit resources in the same way that Big 12 schools will.
Okay, I vibe with that. That's probably fair, right? Because your charter member schools are trying. We're trying to get out, right? So
more Big 12 schools will commit the kind of money necessary than ACC
I like that.
Schools.
Okay,
because I think you're looking at Clemson, Florida State, Miami, SMU.
They're going to be highly ranked.
Maybe North Carolina, depending on how the Belichick thing goes, in terms of teams that are committed to, like, let's do this thing. Whereas in the Big 12, I think that number's bigger.
Yeah.
I think there are more of those teams in the Big 12.
Here's one for you. What do we think Kansas looks like in 2025 after kind of a year from hell in 2024? Are they going to be a sneaky dark horse team too?
So do you know my comp for Kansas in the ACC is NC State. So that's kind of, I was trying to go like school for school. Mm-hmm. Is that too high? Is Kansas?
If I was NC State, I'd be a little offended given the historic lows that Kansas has been. And yet, at the same time, I don't think you're off. I don't think you're off at all.
So historically, I think you're right, Schaefer. Right now, I think I like Kansas better.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah. So like in the moment,
I think I like Lane Leipold more than Dave. And I think they've had a nice run in the portal. They've added some players. I think Jalen Daniels is coming back. I think they're going to be an interesting team in 2025 for sure.
I always like feeling like I'm not as crazy.
Oh, you are. Just sometimes it's a blind squirrel type thing,
The Kansas. So we all three would take Kansas over NC State.
Yeah, I think so.
NC State lost their entire secondary to the portal. I think they're having a mini revolt.
I like the fact how we're all willing to kind of disregard.
I trust
historic context too. Right?
I trust
you take the programs over the last 20 years, and we're all willing to
I think we've seen the sort of the Indianas teams can win fast. Around here, and this is a conversation that makes everybody mad right now. Teams can win faster than 8 years of putting effort into it. So
allegedly, allegedly,
I'm willing to not say allegedly, but I understand.
Oh shoot, Schaefer, real quick, got 30 seconds here, okay?
Yep.
I gave DB a scenario. Would you take Marcus Freeman over Dabo Swinney?
Yeah.
Marcus Freeman over Brian Kelly.
That one's tougher. I still think Brian Kelly's a really good coach, also a crazy person. I would rather play for Marcus Freeman, so give me that answer.
If you're hiring a coach, Marcus Freeman or Ryan Day?
Ryan Day.
Marcus Freeman or Steve Sarkisian?
Steve Sarkisian.
All right, there you go.
Ooh.
That's Mike J. Schaefer.
That's
Husker 24/7. Appreciate you, Schaefer.
Nice. All right, guys. Have a great Tuesday.
All right.
That's DBM Ravi, Lulla, more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DBM Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. It's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Check out warhorsecasino.com. They always have promotions going on, and you can find out all the rules and regulations that apply to betting here in Nebraska. Get to the casino in Lincoln or in Omaha to place your sports bets. DB.
What up?
This might be a hot take, and I say that tongue in cheek. I think Michael Jordan might have been a bad executive.
What? Why?
So
Why? Why?
So
have you been talking to Ben McLaughlin?
No. I love MJ. He's my guy. I'm wearing Jordans right now, actually.
Are you a Hornets guy?
No, not a Hornets guy. We got to rewind this a little bit. So we were talking about Big 12 versus ACC, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about football, but then we kind of switched over to basketball because you're like, it's funny. Off air.
Because I was trying to defend the Big 12 a couple of years ago.
Yeah. And you're like,
I could see this coming, and I was like, well,
they could be a really good basketball conference.
Will it be enough revenue that they could generate? Because I think they'll be a good basketball conference. And in the same vein, I said to you off air, I said, you know what's funny about me making that argument?
Mm-hmm.
Is I didn't realize the ACC was going to get so bad in basketball.
Yeah, and so we were talking about teams that should have been good or have been good in the ACC in the past, and so Miami got brought up in the dumpster fire they've turned into. And then I asked
again, 60-26 at the half.
And then I asked about Leonard Hamilton and Florida State because that's a team that had been good in the past, has produced several super high draft picks, but is not very good right now. And so I go to look up Leonard Hamilton because he's way older than anybody thinks.
Yeah.
Because he looks like he's...
I said 70.
And he's 76.
Yeah.
He looks like he's not a... If you made me guess, I would guess not a day above 60.
Yeah.
Like, he looks really good for his age.
Cue your black joke.
I don't know what you're talking about. I just think that he has a really good skincare routine, probably.
Prune juice, antioxidants.
Most people use prune juice for something else. But
wait, they do?
Yeah. You know what people use prune juice for? It's to help you poop.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
It's a real thing. Maybe it's a white people thing. I don't know. But I don't know. It's
we have castor oil.
What, you use castor oil to make you poop? I thought that was for like your hair.
Oh no.
Not just your hair, like everybody. It's good for your hair. Castor oil is the thing people put in their hair.
What?
Yeah, it's like supposed to be good for like hair growth. Maybe that's just a TikTok thing. I don't know.
Okay. I don't believe a word of that.
So it's just an AI thing.
So you just eat castor oil and it makes you poop? Is that? I had no idea. I'm stunned right now.
I don't know. I could be blowing it.
My flabbers are gasted. Just
shit.
Anyway, so Leonard Hamilton. So I'm looking up Leonard Hamilton to look up how old he is, right?
Yeah.
And I go, I'm kind of looking up his record, and I totally forgot that 25 years ago he was the head coach of the Washington Wizards. And I was like, oh, that's weird. He must have had like a really good stint at Miami before that. Not really. It was fine. But I don't know how you go from 23-11 at Miami, and then Michael Jeffrey Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time,
allegedly,
is like, all right, Schaefer.
I thought it was LeBron.
Hush.
You just hushed a grown man. Sort of.
Grown is aggressive.
An adult.
Yeah. So
my bad.
I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, Michael Jeffrey Jordan, what are we doing here? Hiring Leonard Hamilton out of Miami for 1 year to be your Washington Wizards head coach. What's going on there? And then I was like, you know what? Kwame Brown might not have been his worst move as a Wizard.
It's fine.
May not have been his worst call.
That's how you landed the plane on the indictment of Jordan?
Yeah, that's where I was like, okay, I've seen enough.
Yeah, that's even the long way around from my thinking.
That's where I landed.
Oh.
Anyway, it's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook.
Yeah.
DB, you have any picks today?
Oh yeah, I got lots.
What do we got? Let's hear them. I want winners.
Winners? That's kind of relative.
No, it's not.
Is it just kind of is or it isn't?
We keep score here. There's winners and losers.
I like 3.
Okay, what do we got?
I like Texas.
You like Turtles? Texas minus 1.5 at home against 22nd ranked Missouri.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really like Texas. I
At the Moody Center.
I'd probably take them on the money. Let's money line 120 maybe or something like that.
It's probably close to even. Let me check here real quick for you, DB.
Yeah.
Quick is relative when you're asking me to look things up.
Yeah, there's zero question about that.
I don't have a money line. It's not showing me.
Why?
I clicked on the wrong thing, if I'm being honest. So give me just a second here.
I'll give you another one.
For being Indian, I'm terrible with computers.
But you're winning.
Minus 130.
Yeah, I it's a little juicy.
Yeah, I'll probably just take the.
But I like the.
I'd rather have.
I do think that's about what it's going to be though. But I like Texas.
I'd rather have the 1.5 at minus 115.
I also like
personally.
I like Tennessee.
Ooh, you like Tennessee?
Yeah. Land this. I think it's about 7 and a hook maybe against Mississippi State.
It is 7 in the hook against Mississippi State.
Yep. Like Tennessee quite a bit. Looking for a nice strong 2-0 bounce back.
You feeling good?
Yeah.
There's
lots of games that I feel good about, but I would lock up Tennessee and Texas on the money line. I like St. Bonaventure.
Big Rick Barnes guy, Tennessee and Texas, huh?
So I feel like I've had to come to Rick Barnes' defense. A lot of people hating on Rick Barnes in our stream.
You're our resident Rick Barnes apologist.
It's a little harsh. I do have to remind people that he's
won more than we think he has.
Yeah, he's top 8 in NCAA tournament wins.
You know what I think it is?
No.
I think he had Durant and didn't win as much as we thought he should have with Durant.
And I thought that was an indictment of Durant.
And that's aged well, actually.
Yeah, that was my hot take.
You know,
for years on radio, I had the player of the year that couldn't get to the Sweet 16. Like I
had a similar hot take about his time with the Warriors, because you look everywhere else, dude has not done a lot of winning, and in fact has been disgruntled at every stop. And we all thought it was like, oh, Kevin Durant came in to save the Warriors. What if the Warriors saved Kevin Durant's legacy?
I think Rick Barnes
he deserves some credit.
I think he has like 27 or 28 tournament wins.
Yeah, he wins a lot. He makes the tournament a lot. And he's done it at a couple different places.
It's a lot.
It's pretty good. I think he's at 800 career wins, something like that.
Yeah,
a couple more than Mick Cronin, but he's older.
It probably wasn't Kobe. It was somebody in our. I don't want to slander
our chat.
Kobe's good name.
Kobe.
It was somebody a couple days ago, and it had just come up a couple of days before that. I'm like, why is everybody hating on Rick Barnes? Oh, somebody on Twitter said that they would take Pearl over Barnes, and I was like, well, Barnes has won more games at Pearl's old school than
I'm not going to fight them on that, because I do think Bruce Pearl's really good.
He is.
But, I mean, Rick, it's a hard – Rick Barnes gets a bad reputation.
Yeah.
But for how good he is, I mean, 820 career wins, that's pretty good. How old do you think Rick Barnes is?
Ooh. Well, I'm not going to factor in antioxidants.
Skincare routine?
What do you guys use? Noxzema? What is it?
Who's you guys?
Younger males.
Which half are you asking?
Well, maybe.
Never mind. I'm going to guess Barnes is 64.
He is 70.
Jeez.
Compared to...
He doesn't look 70 either.
No, but compared to Leonard Hamilton, he looks like Nosferatu.
Did you go see that remake?
No.
Nice pull. What a weirdo.
It was
dude's talking about Dracula.
There was a million of those ads on my TikTok, so I saw a billion of those things. I'm just saying, Rick Barnes is not aged as well as Leonard Hamilton. I wonder what the difference is. Probably too much time in the sun, if I had to guess.
I like Iowa.
It's hard on your skin. Yeah?
Yeah.
Hawkeyes?
Against the plucky underdog bunch of Minnesota.
The plucky underdogs?
Yeah.
Is their payroll also about $500 million?
No.
Neither is the Dodgers because they're not paying anybody till 2060.
Relax over there.
When the dollar will be worth approximately as much as a rupee today.
I like North Carolina.
That's an Indian pull. What?
Catching one on the road against Wake Forest.
You like North Carolina?
I do. Surprisingly.
Surprise.
Again, just two teams that I know really, really well.
Sure.
And if you want the odd.
I've got it 1.5. You still like them?
Yeah, they're getting. The more they get, the better.
They're a favorite.
Carolina?
Carolina's a favorite now.
Ooh. Yeah, I like them.
Minus 1.5?
They'll win.
All right.
You're going to laugh because I'm cheering that they get their brains beat in.
Mm-hmm.
But they have no business being favored.
Who?
UCLA.
Hey, bounce back.
Road or a home fave against Wisconsin. And Wisconsin's pretty good.
You see my bounce back? My bounce back Bruins?
Yeah.
That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla.
Still waiting.
Bet on it. Brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and we're brought to you by our friends at Centris Federal Credit Union. They're federally insured by NCUA and an equal housing lender. If you have some big projects you're looking at this year, check into some home equity options at centrisfcu.org. You can leverage your home's equity and access those funds if you need lower interest rates than some other loan options. You can do a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit. Check out centrisfcu.org to talk to an expert and see where you need to start.
The official plays, we need to get some clarity.
Okay.
So Tennessee and Texas on the money line.
Those are your locks.
We have a little bit of a line disagreement.
Sure. Depends on where you look. I'm looking at ESPN. They've got UNC minus 1.5.
Scores and odds has
Wake Forest minus 1.
Minus 1.
Okay. So a little bit of difference there.
I like Carolina to win that game on the road. That's clarity from my man, St. Louis.
Shop your lines, friends.
Who is also a resident Carolina fan.
But also always go to Warhorse Sportsbook.
Oh, so apparently castor oil for hair is a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. See, I told you it was a thing.
I don't know, man. He might just be riding with you. My mom hasn't responded, so.
Well, you think your mom's not going to ride with me? Come on.
No, but it is a natural it is not a diuretic is for peeing. I always use that for pooping too, but it's not.
Because it sounds like diarrhea.
Yeah, but
no, you're right. I didn't know it was for as a laxative.
Yeah.
And it is. And I learned that during the break as well.
That's all I remember it for.
I've never used it at all. Like, I know what it is.
Yeah.
But I've only ever seen it on like TikTok when people are like, use this for like your own natural hair conditioner or whatever nonsense.
Are you kidding me?
He said it lasts longer than Murray's. Murray's might be the most overrated product ever. Not that you would ever know anything about Murray's.
Is that a black people thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so.
I might use that for my beard. I got like pretty coarse hair in my beard. Like,
no, you don't want it in there either.
Okay.
Nah.
I do need something. I use like this tea tree oil lotion and it doesn't do what I need it to do.
I'm a tea tree guy.
It's pretty good for the skin, but I need it to soften up the beard too.
Some people use it for hair growth too.
Yeah. It's all right.
Anyway, your Jays. I'm afraid to read what Amazing Daniel just put.
Hold on,
what did he say? He said, "I've only known people who don't look like." I knew it was going to be something like that. It's just never normal for Daniel.
He did say it's definitely used on hair/scalp for moisturization and growth.
And he has more hair than both of us combined.
Yeah. He gives me a hard time because I used to make fun of him for his long hair, and now I have a man bun, and he's like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah."
I've never known, and we're going on double digits. I've never known him to look any other way.
Yeah, that's the only way I've ever known him to look.
Yeah.
I think I just made a joke about him, looking like a hippie or something at one point, and then,
He never let.
Oh, yeah, because Amazing Daniel's famous for letting things go.
Right. Although Shane did validate me yesterday, and I'm good on him. So what's my man's name? Taron Edgerton?
Taron Edgerton.
Taron Edgerton.
Edgerton. There you go.
And who's my Spider-Man dude?
Tom Holland.
Shane goes,
no, they do look similar.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was worried that.
No, I wasn't being a hater on that.
I was worried that Daniel.
I was just telling you it wasn't the same guy.
No, I get it.
But they do look. They've got a similar look, and they're both British. And yeah, I get it.
Oh, I see.
Thank you, Art.
It's like there's some people that think Jake Gyllenhaal and Tobey Maguire look alike, and I don't see that.
Jake Gyllenhaal. He's the guy that played. Was he Southpaw? Was he the boxer fighting
his
his daughter?
Yep.
I kind of like him.
That's Maggie's brother.
Depends on the role. He's hit and miss for me.
Is Maggie the naughty secretary?
In what?
I'm
movie
not sure.
she played in was Spader.
I don't know. She's the second Rachel in The Dark Knight. So after Katie Holmes in the first one in Batman Begins, in The Dark Knight, she's the one that gets killed. Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Oh,
Bruce Wayne's girlfriend.
He left a little note.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the bad secretary.
Okay, I don't know. But
Google on your own.
I was
time.
saying maybe not while I'm on work Wi-Fi. I'm not gonna Google naughty secretary at work.
I can't remember the movie. I mean, anyway, DePaul and Creighton.
But yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal and Tobey Maguire, I don't think look alike, and a lot of people confuse them, and I don't understand why. Anyway, DePaul is a 6.5-point dog hosting Creighton at home.
My God, my buddy, why do you use words like naughty? What do you want me to say? Is that little? So now naughty is little kiddish?
That's nope. It's not. Nope.
I don't know why. Naughty seemed appropriate.
I'll explain when you're older. It's fine.
Knock it off.
I'll explain when we're off air.
Isn't it always appropriate?
It's almost never appropriate. Anyway.
So what's a different word that you would have that fit that I
don't know what the movie is, so I don't know what I like. Naughty
is naughty a little kid's word?
Nope. That's nope.
Okay, so
I don't know what
50-year-old dudes can't use naughty.
You can. I don't know if that's the context you want to use it in.
Oh, Austin. Apparently the movie's just called Secretary.
Which is different than Secretariat. That's about a horse.
I didn't know the name of the movie. I just know it was a weird relationship with her boss.
Like inappropriate?
Yes.
Okay, then naughty is the correct word there.
So was it naughty or nice? I mean, is that what you're getting at?
It's not a Christmas movie, Shane.
Oh.
If it was an inappropriate relationship between the secretary and the boss, naughty is the correct adjective there. So that's why I was like, I don't know the context, because naughty might have been the right word. Creighton's a 6.5-point favorite at DePaul. It's a tough place. You have to bring your own energy. You know?
Yeah.
It's a tricky game because, it's a little bit. It's the
Stop it.
No, it's the poor man's version of Nebraska versus Rutgers. You got some capable guys at DePaul, but they're not very good. Right?
Yeah. If you're a degenerate like us and you actually watch DePaul,
oh, gosh, I hate it.
You know that they're
capable.
Yeah.
That's the Timu version of Rutgers, right?
So the lazy narrative's going to be, because I've heard this all week from people that I don't know. I shouldn't do that. That's childish. From basketball observers that are saying, hey, this is, you can't stub your toe. You got the momentum from UConn. I get those narratives for our job because it sounds like you
got to talk about something.
You have to talk about something.
Yeah.
But what it really is just understand the landscape of college basketball and what it means to win. And so when Max says things like, hey, we got to win at Butler, you don't take that for granted, or we got to win here. You don't take that for granted in the Big East. If you're saying those things all along, you don't have those built-in potential hot takes coming up about playing trap games and having a bad team on the road. Because you and I have notoriously one of our famous knockdown dragouts was
game sneaking up on you.
Does a game sneak up on you?
Yeah,
and I'm like, there's such a thing as being ill prepared.
Yeah,
but the way that you coach it, it doesn't sneak up on you. Like, I guarantee you, Mac is saying, hey, listen, people don't think much of DePaul. We watch the tape.
They're capable.
They're
a bad basketball team, but they're capable.
You're going to be like, man, that damn DB that's always telling me that DePaul has good players. They have good players.
They're undrafted free agent Rutgers, basically, right? They've got guys. Like, would it shock you if a handful of these guys end up in the G League or on –
No, they
on two ways. Like they're capable guys, right? They're not top 3 draft pick guys the way you have at Rutgers, but they're capable guys that would not shock me. And DePaul's like this a lot. Like Paul Reed and Max Strus played on the same DePaul team, and they were still bad.
Yeah, I watched Paul Strus step on the out of bounds line twice in the NBA. Max.
Yeah.
Day before yesterday.
Yeah.
Did the court shrink?
That dude gets real minutes and matters in the NBA.
Oh.
He was.
Did the court shrink and you not tell me?
It did not. Although that was the thing that happened with Creighton a bunch like 2 years ago, where they would step on the sideline out of bounds on the corner threes constantly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, did you not measure your practice court correctly? What's happening here? But no, it's a capable team that you look at. It's second round Rutgers. Like these are guys that are going to end up on two-way contracts or being good somewhere else. But you're going to get no credit for beating them.
Yeah.
And you will get absolutely hammered if you lose.
I think you'll like CJ Gunn.
Yeah.
I do. I think he's got potential to be a headache.
And Chris Holtman's a good coach.
NJ Benson is not bad.
Like, Holtman's a good coach.
They get loosey-goosey with the basketball. But it is a light line.
Yeah, 6.5.
Yeah. That's a very light line.
This is a game, I'm not going to call it a trap game, but these are the type of games where you have to be careful.
Yep. And depending on what happens with like Xavier and St. John and some of these other these kind of weird, important games, in my opinion, in the Big East. In the next 4 days, what happens in the Big East could change quite a bit,
pretty dramatically.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got there's a chance by the end of this week Creighton could be tied for first
if you handle your business.
If they handle their business,
you are correct.
And St. John stumbles, you're tied for first.
Yeah,
and you've already beat St. John's, right? So you look at that, and I'll be the first to admit, did not think we'd be having this discussion with this Creighton team.
I'm glad you could be honest.
Yeah, like it's
bizarre world when I'm the Creighton defender.
Yeah, look at you, just Creighton homer.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense with how much you love private schools.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember at the old place you used to wear.
Getting more uncomfortable by the second.
You used to wear I Heart Private School shirt all the time.
All the time.
And I mean, basically West Side's basically the private school, the public school.
Yeah,
so.
My man is just out here dribbling down.
Did I play all the hits? Did I get them all?
Anything else? A parting shot?
How much NIL money are you guys going to spend this year? That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will be back tomorrow with more Hurrdat Sports Radio.